So good morning, everyone. We are going to continue with impact of World War II, and then we are going to move towards देखते हैं कहाँ लेके जाती रहे हैं. या तो कोल्ड वॉर की तरफ जा सकते हैं या फिर फाशिज्म और उन सब चीज़ों की तरफ देखते हैं कैसे बनता है. एनीवेज राइट हो. हाँ जी. हाँ जी. ट्रिपल एंटेंटे. Triple Entente was basically the alliance between the Britishers, the Russians, and the French. It was not a military alliance, right? And it was the German mistake to think that it was a military alliance. With respect to France and Russia, there was a military pact, there was a military alliance, which was supposedly secret since 1894. There was this military alliance. 1904, Entente Cordiale between Britain and France. They resolved their colonial disputes. Right? So finally France agreed that Egypt, Sudan, they can be sphere of influence of the Britishers, and the Britishers, they agreed to support the French if there is any issue on Morocco. So therefore that is called Entente Cordiale, 1904. That is establishment of cordial relations. 1907, Britain-Russia agreement. Right? The triangle we used to discuss, right? Because of which Germany felt encircled. So Germany felt encircled because of Triple Entente, माने तीन दोस्तों के बीच में दोस्ती. Right? Triple Entente. Three relations. Cordial relations, Entente Cordiale. Right? Triple Entente, three relations. Right? Of them, only one relation was a military relation. Neither Britain-Russia pact was a military alliance, nor Britain-France pact was a military alliance, but Germany assumed that since these people, they have come very, very close, they will naturally support each other in case of war. That's why Germany felt encircled. But otherwise, Britain-Russia 1907 and Entente Cordiale 1904, there was not a military pact. Okay. Any other doubt from the previous classes? Hanji? Little Entente. Little Entente means relationship which bound together some smaller countries with France. Right? So Yugoslavia, Czechoslovakia, France, Poland, Romania. So if you notice that among these countries, only one country is a big country, bigger power, that is France, and rest of these countries are mostly created after the World War I, right? So because France now cannot have that military alliance with Russia, why? Because Russia is a communist country and France is a capitalist country. So because of capitalism versus communism rivalry, the trust levels between France and USSR, they are nearly zero. In fact, USSR is trying to export communism in multiple countries, trying to create political instability in multi-party democracies, right? So there is rivalry, right? What was the utility of Russia for France? To threaten Germany that if Russia and France are together, then Germany, you would have to fight war at two fronts. If you try to move on the right hand side, France will attack you from this side. If you try to move on the left hand side, Russia will attack you from that side. And therefore, you would have to fight two-front war. And any country does not like fighting two-front war because its military strength simply gets halved. Right? Half of your soldiers on one border, half of your soldiers in another border. Right? And therefore, you're fighting from here also, from here also. Right? So, how to recreate that? If such a USSR is there, which is not my friend, how to recreate these two fronts for Germany? So let us search for some other countries in the neighborhood on the right hand side of Germany or maybe slightly below Germany. These countries are Czechoslovakia, Poland, Romania, right? So therefore France created this alliance. It created it when? 1920s, right? So it was also a hedging by France. That is, Do Plan, Law Treaty, Khao Kellogg's, Rohoyang, that is from 1924 to 1929. So while these relations were improving between France and Germany, and because of these loans, Germany was economically rising, right? So see, France is okay with the rise of Germany now. Why? In national interest, because war reparations are needed. So if Germany is not economically powerful, how will France get war reparations? But ये वही France है who ensured that 6,600 million pounds, right, and a very harsh treaty of Versailles is signed, imposed on Germany in 1920, Treaty of Versailles, right? So therefore, you hedge. Hedge means that is you balance right? So therefore, what if this rising Germany tomorrow becomes strong and again attacks me? In the Treaty of Versailles, I wanted to keep this Germany permanently weak, militarily also, economically also, right? But now, because of some XYZ situation, this same Germany is able to economically rise. What if tomorrow it threatens me? So therefore, what is my hedge? So in 1920s, they created this little entente as a insurance. That is, Germany is rising, but if tomorrow it threatens me, so what is my insurance? USSR cannot be my insurance because it is communist. So therefore, let me sign an alliance with other small countries. That is why when Hitler signed non-aggression pact, 10-year non-aggression pact in 1934 with Poland, so therefore it broke the little entente, because one of the alliance partner is saying, I will not attack you, you will also not attack me. So that means उसको neutralize कर दिया आपने. So therefore little entity got weakened. ठीक है ना? तो this is the idea. Any other doubts? नहीं? कुछ पढ़ा भी होना चाहिए कुछ डाउट्स होने के लिए. तो हमने लास्ट लाइन क्या लिखी थी? इम्पैक्ट हमने कहा था. y axis lost. So y axis पावर लॉस्ट ये लिख लिया हमने. ओवरऑल इम्पैक्ट क्या है? इम्पैक्ट बड़ा सिंपल सा है, एंड एक्चुअली इम्पैक्ट से ना नए टॉपिक्स निकल के आ रहे हैं. बिकॉज ऑफ द इम्पैक्ट न्यू टॉपिक्स आर कमिंग. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, वन ऑफ द इम्पैक्ट इज कोल्ड वॉर बिगैन नाउ. अब ये तो प्रॉपर टॉपिक ही हो गया. ठीक है. अनदर काइंड ऑफ इम्पैक्ट कैन बी हाउ मेनी पीपल डाइड, राइट? ऐसा. अनदर काइंड ऑफ इम्पैक्ट विल बी, अच्छा फिर जर्मनी के साथ फाइनली क्या हुआ? ठीक. जापान के साथ फाइनली क्या हुआ? दिस काइंड ऑफ. ठीक है. तो ये बहुत सिंपल है, बट ठीक है, लिख लेते हैं. सो राइट ऑन इम्पैक्ट ऑफ WW2. इम्पैक्ट ऑफ WW2. फर्स्ट पॉइंट, more than 40 million died. 40 million means 4 crore. More than 40 million died, of which half were Russians. More than 40 million died, of which half were Russians. Of which half were Russians. Right? So how can we think about it? We can think about it in this manner, that okay, in the World War I, which were the countries which are most devastated? It was France and Russia, right? France and Russia, because Germany really thrashed France and Russia in the World War I, right? It was because of US and Britain that Germany lost, right? So that is why France is so angry at Germany, and that is why France was demanding huge war reparations. In the World War II, who was the biggest sufferer? Russia. Right? So okay, we know that okay, Russia has suffered a lot in the 2 world wars. This is our learning. And wars, they are very, very expensive. So Russia is going to lose economically in the 2 world wars in a way. Russia is going to lose a lot of men also. Right? So that is the background. ठीक है. और अगर हमें ये पता होगा तो मैं बहुत सारी चीज़ें बताऊंगी. अगर हमें ये पता होगा, so we know a sentence that on the eve of the World War I, Russia was largely agrarian economy. It was not industrialized. And then 2 world wars are taking place, right, which will also devastate it. This kind of scenario it is there. Okay? But 1929 onwards, they had started industrialization. 1929 onwards, which we'll see later. तो बस एक ही point ये याद रखना है कि Russia suffered a lot because of World War I and then also because of World War II. Right? अगर हमें ये पता होगा तो why US won the Cold War in 1991? One of the point we can mention that if we do a historical comparison of economic losses because of world wars, then US war did not take place on the territory of US. US entered the war relatively late, whereas compare with Russia, right? So therefore, inheritance of economy was much better on the side of US as compared to USSR, and economics is very, very important for any system to be successful or to be a failure, right? तो consequence of Cold War भी हम यहीं से कुछ we are trying to think about, right? That is result of why the result of Cold War was like that. This is one very important reason, economic reason, that why USSR will disintegrate in 1991, why it will fail against US in the Cold War. Kaise exactly? We'll see later, right? Plus Holocaust, 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 against Jews, Holocaust against Jews, Holocaust against Jews. That basically means execution of Jews by Hitler, which I hope everyone is aware, many Jews were killed, right? Plus Hiroshima, Nagasaki, plus Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Hiroshima, Nagasaki in Japan. Where nuclear bomb was dropped. Where nuclear bomb was dropped in 1945. Where nuclear bomb was dropped in 1945 to force Japan to surrender. To force Japan to surrender. Next point, Italy lost all colonies. Italy lost all colonies. Plus Japan lost all territory. Japan lost all territory captured in last 90 years. Japan lost all territories captured in last 90 years. Captured in last 90 years. How should a student mind function? When we are writing that Italy lost all colonies, so therefore, where was Italy? Italy was on the Axis power side. And we have seen in the World War I that those who were losing powers, they lose their colonies, right? So similarly, in the World War II also, those which are on the losing side, they lost their colonies, right? So we see a pattern. It is because what had we established that colonial rivalry was one of the biggest reason for the World War I, right? And therefore, those who will lose the war, they will lose their colonies also, right? Varchas ki ladai hai. Right? So obviously, those in the World War II are also losing, they are also going to lose their colonies. Why? Because if you lose colonies, then you become economically weak. And economy is the most important aspect. Right? So fine. इसमें कोई फिर बड़ी बात नहीं हुई. अगर हमें इतना पता है, if you understand this much, that what is the logic of colonies, money is the logic of colonies, rivalry is colonial rivalry. So obviously, like in the World War I, the losing powers lost colonies, here also they will lose the colonies. So fine, no issues. Japan, on the World War I, it was on the winning side. That's why it gained colonies. It took over German Pacific Islands, if you remember, right? Washington Conference, they also approved, theek hai bhai, German Pacific Islands, they are yours. But in the World War II, Japan is on the losing side. Right? So it will lose all the colonies which it has captured in the last 90 years. Right? So therefore, for example, 1945, right? ऐसा, and it was अब इसमें से last 90 years है तो 1800 कितना 1855 कर दो इसका, roughly 1855, ठीक है? तो 1855 onwards. 1850s onwards, ऐसा समझ लो, ठीक है? So which are the colonies, which are the territories it is capturing? ठीक है, इस साल को आप और भी कम कर सकते हो, ठीक है? But it is majorly your first Sino-Japanese war, right, which take place in 1890s, ठीक है? तो इसको आप last 90 years करके, मतलब ठीक है, बुक्स में ऐसा लिखा हुआ है last 90 years, last 100 years इस तरीके से, but आप इसको 1895 तक भी लेके आ सकते हो, ठीक है? Basically, Taiwan was captured, right? Formosa was captured in the first Sino-Japanese war. Right? Senkaku Islands were taken over. So वो सब चला गया एक तरीके से, ठीक है? इस तरीके से Senkaku Islands का रहा, but otherwise बाकी सब चला गया, ठीक है? Most of the territories, German Pacific Islands lost, ठीक है? वो सारे territory gone, ठीक है? Next point, USSR took over huge territory in Eastern Europe. USSR took over huge territory in Eastern Europe. Huge territory in Eastern Europe. Huge territory in Eastern Europe. Theme देख लेते हैं क्या है? Theme is basically this, that this is Europe, right? And half of this, it is in a way Russia. or USSR, and Russia is Asia, Eurasia, na Asia, ठीक है, some part. This kind of scenario it is there, ठीक है. Now, overall theme is that USSR and US, they were very good friends, right? Till the point of time Franklin D. Roosevelt was alive, right? But in 1945, just before the end of the war, FDR died, and therefore a person called Truman, Truman, he came to power. Now, he was like Chiang Kai-shek. Like Chiang Kai-shek, it is like Dr. Sun Yat-sen and Chiang Kai-shek, and there is similarity between Franklin D. Roosevelt and then Truman. Dr. Sun Yat-sen, who set up Kuomintang in China in the year 1912, he was ready to cooperate with the communists. He had, one of his goal was NLD was his goal, nationalism, land reforms, democracy. L for land reforms. That means he was capitalist, but still he was ready to take into account the grievances of the poor peasants. And yes, if there should be some gradual land redistribution from the rich people to the poor peasants. ऐसा accommodative थे. तो good relations was there between communists and Kuomintang till the point of time Dr. Sun Yat-sen is there. So he is a person who is a capitalist, but he is ready to bear, he is ready to talk, he is ready to negotiate with the communists. Chinese Communist Party was set up in which year? 12 का reverse कर दो, ठीक है? 1221, 1921. He is dying in which year? 1925 के आसपास he is dying, right? So therefore he had good relations, and communists, they can exist even before establishment of a party by the communists. Like moderates, they existed even before INC, right? In form of pre-INC associations, है ना भाई? Moderate होने का मतलब क्या है? My moderate goal and my moderate method, ठीक है? तो उस तरीके से तो moderates, they existed even before Indian National Congress, right? कोई ऐसा थोड़ी कि in 1885 when Indian National Congress is born, only on that day the person became a moderate. नहीं, वो व्यक्ति तो पहले भी moderate था, अब एक संस्था का part बन गया. Earlier also he was a moderate. Now he has become part of an organization. So communists थे and good relations with it. But then came Chiang Kai-shek, right? After Dr. Sun Yat-sen, and Chiang Kai-shek hated communists like anything. And as a result, if you notice that from 1927, 1928, a civil war began. Warlords को तो हरा दिया इन्होंने. Warlord era 1916 से 1928. Warlords were defeated. A central government in China was established, right? But उसके बाद क्या start हो गया? Civil war, right? Why? Because he hated communists like anything. That is same kind of transition from Franklin D. Roosevelt to Truman. Franklin D. Roosevelt had good relations. उसने स्टालिन को भी पटा लिया था, right? माने कि he gave Stalin huge amount of loans also. कि भाई तू लड़ World War II, you fight World War II, I'll give you huge amount of loans. There was this Lend-Lease Act, ठीक है? तो US, you know, Franklin D. Roosevelt, और पता है क्या मस्त? गुरु शिष्य. Franklin D. Roosevelt, थोड़ा सा डाइवर्ट कर रहा हूँ. Franklin D. Roosevelt was शिष्य or student of a person called Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson was the president of US during the World War I, right? And his dream was, let us have an international organization which will maintain world peace. So therefore, League of Nations was brainchild of guru of Franklin D. Roosevelt, that is Mr. Woodrow Wilson. But League of Nations failed because World War II is taking place. That means failure of League of Nations. And why League of Nations was a failure? For example, one of the points which we have written earlier, that it was not a truly representative organization. Example, Germany is not part, USSR is not part. So if important countries are not even members of the League of Nations when it is being set up, so you cannot act in an unbiased manner, right? The world does not have faith in you, right? So therefore this time the Shishya, that is Franklin D. Roosevelt, he wanted to improve, he wanted to achieve the dream of his guru by setting up a United Nations, right? And he tried to convince USSR that, see, without a USSR there cannot be a UN, right? So therefore, please, Stalin, you have to become member of this United Nations Security Council, right? Aisa. We will act in an unbiased manner, and therefore we are going to establish trust between the capitalist world and the communist world. No worries, but we will maintain world peace. Aisa. But when Franklin D. Roosevelt, he died, right? मतलब Stalin बिल्कुल Hitler type व्यक्ति था. Stalin was literally like Hitler, and Stalin ने पता अपने बेटे को मरवा दिया. Stalin had got his son killed. Why? Because I think his son lost in a battle. right? Something like this. Or his son, मतलब कुछ था ऐसा issue, ठीक है, that he was मतलब disgrace, you are a disgrace, मारो इसको, ठीक है, this kind of something like this it was there. He had run away from a battle, or something, he had run away from a battle, something it was there, right? So Stalin was very brutal. और उसके मुंह से ये निकलना that when Franklin D. Roosevelt died, Stalin said he was a good man. इसका मतलब he must be really good man, ठीक है, because Stalin saying such a thing, ठीक है, तो ऐसा. Even Stalin was sad when Franklin D. Roosevelt died. He was 4-time US president. After that, they created this rule that only 2 terms are allowed, right? Wheelchair president. There is a documentary also, Wheelchair President, on Amazon Prime, right? No one knew he's on wheelchair. मतलब he used to ensure इस तरीके से गाड़ी से उतरना, इस तरीके से, या फिर खड़े होके पोडियम के पीछे स्पीच देना कुछ इस तरीके से, दैट और यहाँ पे पैर पे कुछ लगा के रखना अंदर पैंट के अंदर, राइट, सो दैट यू आर एबल टू स्टैंड अप. नो वन न्यू दैट ही इज ऑन व्हीलचेयर, राइट, फॉर हिज 4 terms. Why? Because strength is very, very important. Display of strength is very, very important, right? For the public confidence. So Truman was very, very anti-communist, but right, and without telling USSR, nuclear bomb was dropped on Japan, and that was a stab in the back for Stalin. That was a breach of trust for Stalin. That you basically wanted to surprise us. You basically wanted to tell us that, see, this is live demo, we have this kind of a bomb, so therefore communism औकात में रहना. And that was actually the goal also of Truman, right? ऐसा. So therefore probably had Franklin D. Roosevelt been there, maybe the nuclear bomb would not have been used. Development तो काफी टाइम से चल रहा होगा, maybe it would not have been used. Or if it had been used, then they would have, Franklin D. Roosevelt would have taken into account, would have taken into confidence Stalin or USSR, for the sake of United Nations, right, or for the sake of building a peaceful world order later on, right? So now therefore, after dropping of the nuclear bomb, right, USSR is chaukanna, USSR is in fear ki what they have created, what technology have they created, right, aisa. And now otherwise also USSR, right, it now wanted to take revenge of World War I. If you remember, in the World War I, because of Treaty of Brest-Litovsk 1917 with Germany, signed by Lenin, so that they can exit the war, Russia lost huge territory. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Ukraine, Georgia. These were the territories which were lost by Russia, right? And Ukraine, Georgia, they were able to take back from 1918 to 20, but बाकी territories independent हो गई थी, ठीक है? So अब बदला लेना है, ठीक है? So now for its own security, and now for this fear that capitalism is now going to attack me, from where? From this side it is going to attack me. So now my focus should be, I need to create a buffer zone. That is, I need to move as left as possible, right? Why? Because this is capitalist world and this is my communism. So tomorrow, if capitalism will attack from this particular side again, if capitalism will attack from this side again, then the first casualty will not be my core territory of Russia, but the first casualty will be this buffer zone, which is basically called Eastern Europe, right? So therefore, focus of Russia, and what is this? This is basically what? This is Germany. So therefore, now there was a race that who will reach Berlin first, right? So from the left hand side, US is running, right? And from the right hand side, USSR is running, right? ऐसा इधर से Germans को US Britain हरा रहे हैं, and on the right hand side Russia is trying. So Germany was already defeated before nuclear bomb was dropped, right? But ये सब चीजें पता थी that once the common enemy, that is Germany, it is defeated, fascism, it is defeated, after that there will be some kind of, or there can be some kind of resumption of capitalism versus communism. So World War II में पहले Germany हारा था, फिर Japan हारा था, right? First Germany lost, then Japan lost, right? So A, to take revenge of the World War I, Second, to create a buffer against capitalism, right? Already before defeat of Germany, these people ऐसा रेस स्टार्ट हो गया था, ठीक है, ये इधर से, ये इधर से. एंड अगर आप देखेंगे किताब नॉर्मन लोवे वाली जो किताब है या फिर और जो किताबें हैं, उसमें कवर क्या है? देयर इज अ फ्लैग, कम्युनिस्ट फ्लैग इन बर्लिन. शॉपिंग में नेक्स्ट टाइम निकलोगे तो देखना कि वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री की किताब देना, तो आचार्य अर्जुन देव की या फिर जो एनसीईआरटी, ओल्ड एनसीईआरटी जो रिपब्लिश होती है, ठीक है, उसका जो कवर है, ऑन द कवर ऑफ द एनसीईआरटी देयर इज दिस communist flag or USSR flag which is there in Berlin. So USSR was able to reach Berlin first. This kind of scenario it is there, right? So ऐसा, so that is the idea, right? So why this thing? So basically ये कहीं ना कहीं Cold War start हो गया है. So this principle we had discussed earlier also. We had drawn this triangle that this is capitalist multi-party democracy, this is fascist capitalist, and this is your USSR. Right, ऐसा. This triangle we had drawn, if you remember, right? So therefore, when this was a common enemy, these people they came together, right? But when this common enemy was defeated, then rivalry will start again, right? So when it was sure that हम हरा पाएंगे इनको, so therefore this race had already begun, and escalation of tension by dropping of nuclear bomb after defeating Germany. तो जब Germany defeat हो गया, so Russia and US they decided that Japan it is present here. This is Japan, right? So it was decided that we'll attack Japan from this side, and in the Pacific, this is Pacific. So US is there in the Pacific in many islands, and you attack US from Japan from this side. Joint attack was to be launched. And when the US they attacked with nuclear bomb. So therefore, ये बेचारा घबरा गए, right? And therefore, proper Cold War in a way it is going to begin. ठीक है, तो ये कुछ स्टोरी है, ये पूरा एक टॉपिक ही है बाद में व्हेन वी डिस्कस कोल्ड वॉर. सो देयरफॉर ये सब एस्पेक्ट्स हम दोबारा डिस्कस करेंगे, राइट? सो राइट डाउन एग्जांपल, यूएसएसआर टुक ओवर ह्यूज टेरिटरी इन ईस्टर्न यूरोप. एग्जांपल, टुक बैक बाल्टिक स्टेट्स, टुक बैक बाल्टिक स्टेट्स, टुक बैक बाल्टिक स्टेट्स, दैट इज एस्टोनिया, लाटविया, लिथुआनिया, दैट इज एस्टोनिया, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. This is how world history can help in current affairs. Lithuania, Estonia, these countries are again in news because of expanding, right? So therefore these countries later on they decided that will be neutral, will not be part of NATO. But gradually news are coming that countries like Lithuania, etc., they are considering to become part of NATO, right? Aisa. So Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. And converted Baltic states कहाँ है? Baltic states यहाँ पे, these are Baltic states, ठीक है सर. So and converted Eastern Europe and converted Eastern EU and converted Eastern EU, EU means Europe, Eastern Europe into its SOI, sphere of influence. कभी confusion हो तो पहले दो letters को शॉर्ट में लिख लो, लास्ट वाले लेटर को एक्सपैंड कर दो तो ठीक है. एसओ इन्फ्लुएंस, स्फीयर ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस, तो याद आ जाएगा, ठीक है, इनटू एसओआई, स्फीयर ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस, राइट सर, ठीक है. हाउ विल यू कन्वर्ट इट टू स्फीयर ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस? ऑल्दो इट इज अ टॉपिक ऑफ कोल्ड वॉर, बट आई विल टेल यू लेटर. स्फीयर ऑफ इन्फ्लुएंस बाय एंश्योरिंग दैट सच गवर्नमेंट्स आर प्रेजेंट इन द ईस्टर्न यूरोपियन कंट्रीज व्हिच आर योर पपेट्स, राइट, हु विल डू व्हाटएवर यू वांट टू डू, right? So therefore this is you convert the whole Eastern Europe into your sphere of influence. यहाँ पे आपकी चलेगी. Formally you have not annexed these countries, but you are the boss of this particular country. So half of Europe will come under communist influence. Next point. Germany and Austria separated. Germany and Austria separated and converted into 4 occupation zones. मैं तो ऐसे इसका एक न्यूमेरिक समझना, ओजोन, मैं ओजोन लेयर आ गई, ओजोन ऑक्यूपेशन जोन, ओजोन कन्वर्टेड इनटू 4 ऑक्यूपेशन जोन्स ऑफ ब्रिटेन, फ्रांस, USSR, US, Britain, France, USSR, US. In brackets also Berlin and Vienna. Also Berlin and Vienna into 4 ozones. Also Berlin and Vienna into 4 ozones. Berlin and Vienna into 4 ozones. Occupation zones, brackets closed. So what is basically happening? So basically if this is your, let's say Germany, right? So this is being divided into 4 occupation zones, right? So therefore this will be divided into something like this. Usually रशिया के पास ज़्यादा टेरिटरी था, but ठीक है. Right? So for example, this will be occupation zone of USSR. Right? If this is Germany, on the left hand side, this will be occupation zone of, let's say, France. This will be occupation zone of, let's say, Britain. This will be occupation zone of US. Right? Why I do it like this? There is always a geographic sense. If this is Germany, then on the left hand side of Germany, there is what? France and Belgium. Right? So therefore, France would want its occupation zone to be geographically contiguous with territory of France, right? So this is fixed. But second concept of world history, when you are not a regional power, then it does not matter which particular territory you will get, right? So therefore US can take anything because it is very, very far off away. But you know, Britain is also this side. If this is Germany, then Britain is this side. So naturally, Britain will get this wala occupation zone. USSR is on this side, so naturally USSR will get this occupation zone. What is the meaning of occupation zone? You are not annexing a territory, but you are stationing your army there. You are stationing your army there, right? So it is divided into 4 parts, and 4 armies are going to be present. 4 armies are going to be present. Then this particular place, it was here, it was Berlin. This particular place, it is Berlin. And what is happening into Berlin? Berlin is also divided into 4 occupation zones, right? So therefore this is East Berlin and this is West Berlin. This is East Berlin and this is West Berlin, right? West Berlin has occupation zones of US, Britain, France, whereas East Berlin has occupation zone of USSR, right? Now what is the problem? What is the problem for USSR, which we'll later see? The problem for USSR is that this particular is capitalist. This is capitalist, right? Whereas whole of this, अब रेट पता नहीं इस पे आता है नहीं आता कितना अच्छा आता है, but whole of this is communist. So therefore, within the whole this shaded portion of communism, within this whole shaded portion of communism, red represents communism, that is the color of their flag also, right? There is this island of capitalism, which is my big problem. There is this island of capitalism, which is my big problem. This island of capitalism is there, right? Which is my big problem, right? ऐसा माने ये सारा red है और बीच में एक ये capitalist है, right? That is the issue, right? And therefore, some of the people in the middle of my territory, they are living in a capitalist system, right? And ये मेरी एक तरीके से छाती पे क्या होता है, क्या रगड़ते हैं, ठीक है, छाती पे सांप लौट रहा मैंने, ठीक है, that right in the middle there is this, you know, capitalist, right? Why? Because capital was also divided into ozones, right? And therefore it will become a goal of USSR later. USSR will keep on requesting these people, please give whole of Berlin to me. What is the logic? Please give whole of Berlin to me. And these people like, right? Why? Because they want to, and these people will pump in huge amount of money, right? They will make life of people of West Berlin jingalala, right? So that people around Berlin and people of East Berlin, they are like, यार capitalism is good, यार capitalism is good, यार capital देखो McDonald खुला हुआ है वहाँ पे, है, देखो पिज्जा हट, ठीक है, देखो है डोमिनोज है, और यहाँ पे क्या बेकार सी कैंटीन, गवर्नमेंट कैंटीन, ठीक है, वहाँ देखो इतनी अच्छी गाड़ियाँ, सच वेरी गुड कार्स आर देयर, राइट, दिस इज व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन, राइट, दिस इज व्हाट दे आर गोइंग टू डू, ठीक है, ऐसा, इसको मैं दिखाता हूँ आपको, ठीक है, तो क्या मतलब ये खैर कोल्ड वॉर में दिखाऊंगा आपको, ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट आइटम. So this was done for Austria also, this was done for Germany also. Acha, what is the reason for this? The reason for this is, what is the reason? So write down reason equal to, ऐसा क्यों किया? Because now USSR is saying that beat World War I, I was battered by Germans like anything. I had to sign humiliating Treaty of Brest-Litovsk 1917. And in the World War II, despite a non-aggression pact, Germany breached the pact and attacked us. We are losing 2 crore people, right, because of Germans. So therefore, these Germans, they need to be kept permanently weak. So what are the emotions of Germany? Germany is like, World War I में फ्रांस ने कहा they wanted to keep me permanently weak. Now this USSR is there trying to keep me permanently weak. So you see, from the perspective of German, the result of both the world wars, it is a very harsh thing. It is a very harsh treaty. But कुछ तो है ज़मीन में जर्मनी की, that there is something in the land of Germany, right, जिसको Middle Europa कहते हैं, which since the ancient times has dominated, you know, at least economically it has been very, very important, that today, right, today also in the European Union, which is the top economy, German economy, right. So Germans, they are very hardworking people, right, they're very hardworking people. In fact, in the culture of Germany, for example, if you are at workplace, right, and let's say, you know, you try to become pally with the German, say, और क्या चल रहा है, ठीक है, what's going on? The German will frown at you, right, dude, we are at work, right, we'll talk later. Ethics of working, right, it is very much, this is a culture, right, have all the fun after work, but on the work, this is a culture totally serious about work, right. All of these brands, BMW, Mercedes, all of these are German cars, right, so German machinery, right, German technology, it is one of the best, right, this kind of scenario it is, right. So one is USSR wanted to keep Germany permanently weak, that is one of the aspects, and second is think like this. On border, you station your army. Now, this is ideological border of capitalism and communism. This is, it is, right. So Germany and Austria, if this is my Europe, right, Germany is Mittel Europa, right. So this is my middle of Europe, right. So from here, you have communism, right. As a Russia, take a half of Russia, it is here. Take a, this is communism. China is also going to be communist soon. Take a, and on the left hand side, you have capitalism. So therefore, on the border, so that the communism is not able to spread towards capitalism, the capitalists, they station their army, and so that capitalism is not able to end communism after a military victory, the communists, they also want to station their army. Right? So because geographically, Germany and Austria are at the border of capitalist and communist world, therefore, there is no agreement to create either a united Germany, and obviously there is no agreement that whether this united Germany will be a capitalist or a communist. Right? So because they are border of capitalism and communism, therefore, no agreement. Therefore, no agreement. on A, United Germany, United Austria, right? So that's why occupy, divide them into occupation zones. There is no agreement. And second aspect is whether, second issue was whether United Germany, United Austria to be capitalist or communist. To be capitalist or communist. There is no agreement. Why? Because it is border area. It's border area, right? So that's why. So it is because of these reasons that Germany, it is divided into occupation zones. Berlin is also divided into occupation zones. Austria is also divided into occupation zones. Vienna is also divided into occupation zones, right? So therefore the concept is there. Okay? So that's why. Next point. Cold War began. Cold War began. Cold War began. Cold War began. Last point, after that I'll answer a couple of questions. Europe was weakened. Europe was weakened. Europe was weakened. In right stala aage. WW1 1914-19, GD 1929, WW2 1939-45. This is equal to कितना हो गया? Roughly 3 decades and 3 big economic crises. Always remember, economics is the most important aspect, right? So within a span of roughly 3 decades, you are suffering 3 big economic jolts. GD 1929, pure economy, wars are very, very costly, right? And where does the devastation takes place? All the devastation takes place where the battles are being fought. Not in US, not in Japan, right? In the case of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, yes. But otherwise, it is majorly being fought in Europe. So who gets devastated? Europeans, they get devastated by wars. Right? They get devastated by wars. And therefore, the power of Europe now ends. Power will be with the Eurasian country, USSR. Why? Because see how much of territory it is capturing. Plus, USSR, despite 2 crore men dying, it still had the largest army. On the other hand, US was the #1 economy already by 1914, now even more. Plus, it also had a nuclear bomb. Right? So therefore, end of Europe and rise of 2 powers, US, USSR, and end of Europe. You'll be surprised to know that today बहुत बेकार कंडीशन है यूरोप की, बहुत बेकार कंडीशन है. मीडिया में आपको नहीं पता चलता. इकोनॉमी वाइज वेरी बैड कंडीशन ऑफ यूरोप, वेरी बैड कंडीशन ऑफ यूरोप, right? ऐसा, this kind of situation. And those who are aware of foreign relations, right, be it some bureaucrats etc., right, they know it, right, they know it. कहते हैं यूरोप का बड़ा बुरा हाल है. This kind of situation it is there, right? So decline of US ही है जो है, right? This kind of situation. ठीक है, तो this is what is happening. So write down. Full stop. Combined with pressure of US, combined with pressure of US, comma USSR, combined with pressure of US, comma USSR, comma UN 1945, comma UN 1945, UN 1945 dash decolonization began. Decolonization began. Decolonization began. Right? So US, USSR as well as UN, they now pressurized a weakened Europe that you need to decolonize. You need to decolonize. Right? So therefore the process of decolonization began, and that is the contribution to the Indian freedom of the World War II, of the Great Depression 1929, and also of the World War I. These three crises, they weakened the economic power of the colonial powers, right? And you require a lot of money to handle 1857 like revolt, right? If another 1857 like revolt takes place in India, then it will require huge amount of deployment of army. Uska paisa nahi hai bhai. We don't have money for that, right? So thank you Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, right? Okay, tata, bye bye. Why? Because disaffection in the army was caused. And that was the contribution of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose to the Indian freedom. Despite failing militarily, Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose contributed to the independence of India because of causing disaffection of the army. Right? And what was 1857 revolt? Disaffection in army plus disaffection in people. That is Sepoy Mutiny plus civil rebellion. Right? So therefore, is tarike se. So this is world over decolonization is happening, not just in India. Okay? So this is what is there. We discuss the further reasons when we discuss the topic of decolonization. Right? Next topic करते हैं. अब इससे पहले हम कोल्ड वॉर पे जाएं. तो कोल्ड वॉर पे जाने से पहले थोड़ा सा हमें आइडियोलॉजी समझ लेते हैं. अदरवाइज हम थोड़ा सा बहुत ज़्यादा दूर हो जाएंगे फाशिज्म से. मतलब if we cover the events of the Cold War and we reach 1991 and then I start talking about fascism, so they were like, sir, fascism. मैंने कहा fascism until 1945, तो बहुत ज़्यादा दूर चले जाएंगे हम. So therefore we need to cover the ideologies of fascism and communism. ठीक है? ऐसा देखते हैं क्या चीज़ situation. Right? So concept wise करेंगे इसको. ठीक है? I'll not be dictating things, right? So विजन आईएस का जो मटेरियल है उसमें यू कैन रीड अबाउट फाशिज्म एटसेट्रा, उसमें डिटेल्स हैं फाशिज्म की, कम्युनिज्म की. बट क्योंकि टॉपिक आइडियोलॉजिकल है एंड टॉपिक क्योंकि रिलेटिवली इट इज मच बिगर टॉपिक, ठीक है, तो बोर्ड पे काम करने में भी काफी समय लग जाएगा. ठीक है. सो विल ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड फ्रॉम अ कॉन्सेप्चुअल पर्सपेक्टिव दैट व्हाट इज दिस राइट विंग, व्हाट इज दिस लेफ्ट विंग एंड व्हाट इज द इशू. राइट. सो वन ऑफ द कॉम्पोनेंट दैट कम्स इनटू ऑपरेशन इज, so you can write down the heading ideologies. What is the origin of left wing and right wing? The origin of left wing and right wing is that after French Revolution 1789, this National Assembly was created in 1791 to draft the constitution. Well, the constitution was drafted, okay? National Assembly was created in 1789, but the constitution was drafted by 1791. So, okay, National Assembly was set up in 1789 itself, right? So therefore, National Assembly was set up. It drafted the constitution by 1791. Now, there in the National Assembly, the Jacobins, which were pro-working class, which were more pro-poor, they used to sit on the left-hand side, right? And they used to talk things more about pro-working class and the pro-poor people. Whereas those who are pro-bourgeois, bourgeois means middle class, they used to sit on the right-hand side, right? One example, these people will be saying that right to vote should be linked with the income criteria. These people will be saying no, right to vote should be available to everyone irrespective of how much amount of income they are earning, right? So therefore they are more pro-socialism in that sense, right? Or the idea of socialism has started to develop and this is taking place. That is one of the origin of left and right. What is the second origin? Second origin, this is the first point. Second origin is concept of socialism. This is also connected with French Revolution. This is also connected with French Revolution. After the French Revolution led to what? French Revolution led to working class being sad, right? Why? It did not gain anything. What did it gain? Freedom of work. That is, you can change your job without a certificate of good conduct. ये क्या हुआ? Even the right to vote was linked with income criteria. कोई social security नहीं आ रही है, कोई DBT नहीं आ रहा है, direct benefit transfer, right? कोई minimum wages they are not coming. Nothing was done for the workers. Who benefited? Who was smiling? Peasants were very happy. Why? Because they got lands of clergy and nobility, right? Actual cultivator became the owner of the land. From modern history, have we done modern history? Right? So can we say French Revolution 1789, it resulted in implementation of Zamindari abolition, or it resulted in implementation of Ryotwari settlement? Because in Ryotwari settlement what happens? The actual cultivator becomes the owner of the land. So by force, Ryotwari settlement it is being done by the French Revolution. The cultivator is becoming owner of the land, so therefore the cultivator or the Ryot is very, very happy. Right? The bourgeois, that is those who were traders, lawyers, merchants, doctors, etc., etc., they are also very happy because they get what? Political power. Now they are present in the National Assembly, right? So they are also very happy. Plus democracy is going to be there. And for a capitalist, democracy का biggest utility क्या होता है? Security of property. Why does a capitalist love democracy? Because it gives security of property. The government cannot take away my property at any point of time. In fact, for example, जैसे अब GST has been increased on gaming from from 18% to 28%, right? So a capitalist will say, in India we still do not have security of property. Randomly, right? The state can increase the GST from 18% to 28%, right? There is security of property. Why? Because security of property is subject to law. But the capitalist is unhappy because money is being taken out of his pocket, right? ऐसा without consultations with him properly, because he feels that his view was taken, but his view was not given weightage. This kind of scenario. Anyways, but पहले तो और भी बुरी हालत होती थी. At any point of time, the government can nationalize a company. That from tomorrow, your company is my company. That's why communism or socialism is not liked. For example, Indira Gandhi, she wanted to nationalization of banks, right? Similarly, Jawaharlal Nehru, he also nationalized, right? So therefore, they don't like, that's why capitalists, they do not like communist form of government or socialist form of government, right? Random. Okay? Randomness they don't like, right? So as a result, what happens? This working class thinks that, yeah, I fought and we died, but ultimately we are still being oppressed. Earlier we were being oppressed by the nobility, right? By the clergy, and in the factories by the bourgeois, right? And now also we are continuing to be oppressed by the bourgeois, right? So therefore they come to a realization that till the point of time the political power of the bourgeois is now not ended, we will always be oppressed. So for the welfare of the poor, for the welfare of the working class, there has to be end of bourgeois power now, right? And therefore this is the beginning of rivalry of communism versus capitalism, or socialism versus capitalism. Right? Now a belief will get generated कि जब तक ये सत्ता में हैं हमारा कुछ नहीं हो सकता. भाई इतना सब मेहनत किया यार, लड़े मरे, राइट? फिर भी कटे जा रहा है, क्या मतलब चल क्या रहा है लाइफ में? ठीक है, दैट इज द इशू, राइट? सो व्हाट इज द नेट रिजल्ट? For welfare of working class, right? For welfare of working class, right? So this concept it is developed. This concept it is developed. Why the method has to be armed struggle? Because state is under bourgeois. State के अंदर क्या होता है? State has the power of making law, declaring anything legal, declaring anything illegal. State has police, state has military, state has judiciary. Right? So what is state? State is the organization which rules the country and the people. So that organization is mighty powerful, and therefore to remove that particular, now therefore to remove the power of the bourgeois or the capitalist, there has to be armed struggle. Right? Gandhian struggle cannot work. Right? So it was only in India that Gandhian struggle was tried till the end. In Africa it was tried for some time. After that they also gave it up. Right? So therefore consensus in the world was that if the opponent, if the oppressor is mighty powerful, then it is only through armed struggle that you can get rid of him. Right? Why will the oppressor go away? By simply saying please leave. Right? The oppressor will not go away. Right? He has to be overthrown militarily. Right? So that was the belief of these people. Later on, Karl Marx as well. This is how communism it is, or this is how the idea of armed struggle also comes into operation. Right? There can be difference of opinion. Right? For example, socialists, they can still believe that no, we are not going to go for armed struggle, we are going to go for public protests. Right? So that difference can be, but origin यहाँ पे है armed struggle का. Right? Origin of armed struggle, origin of fight against the bourgeois, the origin it is here. Right? So that is one of the aspects. Right? So now we know that what is left wing and what is right wing. Right? Yes, sir. Up next concept that comes into operation is this. तो बनाते, you would have to make this left wing and right wing. Right? Some kind of a map. Right? So let's say this is center. Right? And this is left wing and this is right wing. Right? So basically then there is a, okay. Let us, since we are discussing about the workers, so let us start here. Okay? So those people who are on the extreme left wing, right? These people, they are called communists. These people, they are called communists. Right? Communists. Communists, what is their belief? They are radical. Right? When you have extreme views, that means you have very radical views. Right? Extremist views are there. Extreme view is that there cannot, मतलब एक fear होता है extreme में. Right? So imagine yourself, imagine yourself in huge amount of anger. Right? Imagine yourself in huge amount of anger, in huge amount of panic. Right? Then you will come out with extreme views. Right? Then you will come out with extreme views. Then and when this huge amount of fear or huge amount of anger it is there, then what your answer would be? Your answer would be that we need to take some extreme steps. Right? So if you are a communist, you'll say only with end of capitalism, there can be welfare of the working class. No toleration of capitalism. Each and every capitalist has to die. Till the point of time there is even a C of capitalism. Right? There cannot be a C of communism. Right? C, letter C. Right? So therefore, till the point of time there is any element of bourgeois, till the point of time bourgeois, they have any kind of power. Right? They are like a virus. Today you leave them this much, tomorrow they will grow, they'll grow, they'll grow, and they'll eat us again. Right? And there was no toleration. Annihilation, complete vaccination, booster dose, ठीक है, totally end, ठीक है, निस्तनाबूत, total end. Why? No. Capitalism, nahin. Right? Capitalism is the enemy of working class. Capitalism is an enemy of working class, and therefore because they are a sworn enemy, they have to be ended. There cannot be any peaceful coexistence between capitalism and communism. Sorry. Right? So the extreme. Right? Fear इनके अंदर ज़्यादा है. ठीक है? तो इनसे आप पूछोगे, how do you want to end capitalism? That is the goal. So ठीक है, ऐसा एंड ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म. अच्छा, इसको थोड़ा सा मेथड पे आएंगे, बट एंड ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म थोड़ा सा इलेबोरेट कर देते हैं. क्या क्या होता है एंड ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म के अंदर? आ जाएगा थिंग्स लाइक, और व्हाट आर द बेसिक फीचर्स ऑफ कैपिटलिज्म? दैट मीन्स ऑफ प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी, of private property. Right? A very basic concept. Till the point of time you are not owner of a property, right, you do not think about profits. For example, if you have a flat on rent, right, you will not be making an investment of 1 lakh rupees Why? Because you're like, sir, I do not know. It is not my flat, sir. Why should I invest? Right? The flat owner, he may renovate the house. I'm not going to renovate the house. I'll pay only rent. Right? But then, and you have 1 lakh rupees at that point of time. Then a call comes from your home that, beta, if you're thinking of renovating your room, right? So that when you come back from UPSC coaching, right, you're able to have a good room. 1 lakh रुपए लगेगा, लगा दो. 1 lakh rupees required. Go ahead. Why? Because that property is yours and it will stay with you forever, right? And this kind of scenario. And when you invest, maybe later on, that particular house which got renovated, which is your property, you can put it on rent to others. So therefore, idea is, let us invest money in something which is my property, and later on it will give me return on investment. That is, I'll be earning profits. So always remember, profits are always earned by the person who is a property owner. Tax is always paid by a person who is a property owner. Inflow of money, that is profits, property owner. Investments by property owner. And tax also always paid by property owner, right? You are not a property owner, you will pay rent. Property tax, housing tax to the MCD, etc., it is paid by the property owner, not by you. Right? So always remember this principle, tax is always paid by owner of property, profits also go always to owner of property. Right? This kind of scenario. If you implement this in stock market, right? So in the case of stock market, how do you become property owner? When you buy equity, when you buy shares. Right? So then if the prices of the shares increase and then you sell and you make a profit, that will go to the property owner, that is the equity shareholder, because the share was yours. Right? This kind of scenario. Okay? When you go for debt, you are not the owner of the property, you become a money lender. Right? So therefore, what is your property at that point of time? The money which you have lended to other person. Right? And therefore, rental income comes on that money, which you call as dividends. No, not dividends, which you call the interest. Right? So this kind of scenario. So ऐसा mind में रहना चाहिए. ठीक है? So end of private property. ठीक है? All of these things. इसको और elaborate करेंगे कि क्या है, क्यों ऐसा ये लोग चाहते थे. But this they want end of capitalism. Second, these people are extreme. So therefore, what is the method? Method is armed struggle. These people, they want armed struggle. Right? Why do they want armed struggle? Because they believe that the capitalists, they have the state with them. And what is the state? State is the organization which rules the country and the nation. That is country and the people. Right? So therefore, state, it includes military. State, it includes police. Right? State, it also includes the power of declaring anything legal or illegal. Right? And state, right to vote is linked with income criteria. Right to vote is linked with income criteria, right? So state is agent of bourgeois, right? This kind of stuff. So therefore, because the state is there with the, because the state is there of the bourgeois, right? So therefore, there has to be armed struggle. This kind of scenario is there. Okay? That is one of their core principle, right? Communism ka. Communists. Then second component that comes into operation is of, इसमें और भी बहुत सारी डिटेल्स हैं, ठीक है, बट उसको हम डिस्कस करेंगे जब कार्ल मार्क्स के फॉर्म में डिस्कस करेंगे, या फिर चलो अगर यहाँ पे और चीज़ एंड ऑफ प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी, हम ठीक है, प्रॉपर्टी हो गया, हाँ, एक और इनका एक कंपोनेंट आता है वो भी ऐड कर सकते हैं. नेक्स्ट कंपोनेंट दैट कम्स इनटू ऑपरेशन इज व्हाट अबाउट स्टेट. व्हाट अबाउट स्टेट, राइट? सो देयरफॉर देयर आर, अगर हम प्रैक्टिकल सेंस में अगर इसको देखते हैं, इफ वी मूव टुवर्ड्स थ्योरी, देन इन थ्योरी these people, they believe in stateless society. So theory wise, they want stateless society. Why? I just told you, state is the agent of bourgeois. State is the agent of capitalism. So therefore end it. No military, no bureaucracy, no law, no constitution, right? And all the power with the people at the grassroots level. So from this particular perspective, a communist person, in theory, is the most democratic person. Mahatma Gandhi also wanted a stateless society. He wanted all the power at the grassroots level. Communists, they also want all the power at the grassroots level. Difference is, Mahatma Gandhi wanted power to each individual, whereas communists, they want power to the community, to group. So Mahatma Gandhi, individualistic. Communists always communist, commune, community, always at group level, right? So therefore, Mahatma Gandhi will study psychology, right? But communists, they stop at sociology. In sociology, you study group behavior. In psychology, you study individual, right? So Mahatma Gandhi, champion of individual liberty, right? But communist champion of community, right? ऐसा. So they want rule of community or rule of group, right? That is masses. Whereas Mahatma Gandhi wanted rule of individual. So masses versus individual, group versus individual, right? So they want a stateless society. They want all the power to the people at the grassroots level. So therefore, these people, they say that we are also extremely democratic. What is the name of Korea, madam? North Korea? North Korea full name? Democratic People Republic of Korea. Democratic. They say democracy is not a monopoly of capitalists. Democracy is different. Multi-party democracy is different. Democracy, the capitalists say, will achieve democracy by what model? Multi-party democracy model. Multi-party democracy तो रास्ता है, गोल, डेस्टिनेशन तो डेमोक्रेसी है, तो क्या कोई और रास्ता नहीं हो सकता? Multi-party democracy is just the path. The destination is democracy. Can there not be any other way to achieve that democracy? Are Gandhi ji also said that multi-party democracy, this path, leads to will of the parties, not will of the people. So Western multi-party democracies, your polity, it is not truly democratic. Therefore, I want stateless society. I want rule of individual, not rule of party. This was the view of Mahatma Gandhi. He tried to create his own road to democracy. He tried to create his own road to democracy. Similarly, these people, they also say, कि भाई, your road of multi-party democracy, it leads to power to the bourgeois, who are small in number but very rich. That means minority and elites. What about the common man? Common man does not have any power. They also want stateless society in theory. But in practice, what is the situation? In practice, the situation is, ये सारी बातें जो मैं बोल रहा हूँ, ये सब के सब आपका विजन मटेरियल में भी है, ठीक है? And that material has been written by me only, so language will be same, ठीक है ऐसा? And when we discuss Karl Marx, तो बहुत सारी चीजें इसमें दोबारा elaborate होंगी, ठीक है? So don't have that anxiety कि जो भी सर बोल रहे हैं हम उसको सारा लिख नहीं पा रहे, ठीक है? जो लिख पा रहे हो ठीक है, but otherwise exactly same things they are there in the vision material, तो उसको आप देखो same sentences, ठीक है ऐसा? Theory, stateless society, ठीक है ऐसा? But practice में वही है. For example, like Mahatma Gandhi से पूछा, Mahatma Gandhi was saying rule of each individual, so therefore it will lead to huge chaos, right? If there is no police, no nothing. Why? Mahatma Gandhi says that law should not guide behavior of individual, ethics should guide. मतलब मेरे से थोड़ा सा अलग तरीके से ethics निकला, तो मैं सोचा थोड़ा मजा ले, ठीक है? Ethics should guide the behavior of individual, right? So Gandhi ji को कहा कि भाई this will require huge amount of social work, huge amount of कौन सा work? Constructive work. It will require huge amount of constructive work, and it is a multi-decade project, right? And then इसको train किया, मर गया. Now next generation, तुझे ट्रेन किया, तो 100 साल की उम्र में मर गया. नाउ नेक्स्ट जनरेशन, उसको भी ट्रेन करो. Continuous work of building ethics in the society, right? So tough works, right? So Gandhi said, no worries, till the point of time you're not able to achieve the enlightened society, right, which is led by morality and ethics, right? So therefore, till that point of time, you can have a state, multi-party democracy, but please ensure that the state is as weak as possible and fundamental rights are as much as possible, liberty is as high as possible, right? So practical, right? So Gandhi ji was also practical. ये इनका यूटोपिया था, गांधी जी का यूटोपिया था. यूटोपिया मीन्स एक ऐसा, ठीक है, एक दिन ऐसा होगा जब हम ट्रूली आजाद होंगे, है ना? सोलो ट्रैवलर्स का ड्रीम कि हम किसी दिन सोलो ट्रैवल करेंगे. अभी सो नहीं पा रहे, पहले सोलो ट्रैवल कर लेना. सोलो ट्रैवल करेंगे ऐसा, फ्री फ्रॉम एवरी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, ठीक है? गाना चल रहा है बैकग्राउंड में शाहरुख खान के, ले जाए तुझे कहाँ हवाएं हवाएं, कहीं नहीं जा रही. ओल्ड राजेंद्र नगर से कोचिंग इंस्टीट्यूट से ओल्ड राजेंद्र नगर, हवा चल भी नहीं, पसीना वसीना रखा, ठीक, कोई हवा नहीं चल रही, यूटोपिया, ठीक है, यूटोपिया बचपन से दिखाया जाता है। बेटा 10वीं में नंबर ले आओ, फिर यूटोपिया, 12वीं में नंबर ले आओ, फिर यूटोपिया, कॉलेज में हो जाओ, फिर यूटोपिया, कॉलेज में सीजीपीए ले आओ, फिर यूटोपिया, एक बार जॉब लग जाए, फिर यूटोपिया, एक बार यूपीएससी हो जाए, फिर यूटोपिया, या फिर जीआरई हो जाए, या जीमेट हो जाए, या एमबीए हो जाए, फिर यूटोपिया, बस सब शादी कर ले, फिर यूटोपिया, बस सब बच्चा हो जाए, फिर यूटोपिया, यूटोपिया, ऑल यूटोपिया, ठीक है, बस अब अमीर हो जाओ जिंदगी में, फिर यूटोपिया, ठीक है, बस बुढ़ापे में शुगर बीपी ना हो, तो यूटोपिया, मरने के लिए जगह मिल जाए, आदमी अंत में सोचता है वही है यूटोपिया, शांति से मर जाओ, ठीक है, एक दिन ऐसा आए सवेरे आंख ही ना खुले, बेस्ट है, ठीक है, धक्के ना खाने पड़े हॉस्पिटलों के, ठीक है, धीरे धीरे वही है यूटोपिया, ठीक है। बुद्ध जी कह गए यू आर बॉर्न टू सफर, और ये लोग यूटोपिया, यूटोपिया कभी नहीं आता, यूटोपिया नेवर कम्स, ठीक, ऐसा। तो प्रैक्टिस, प्रैक्टिस इनकी बनी वन पार्टी सिस्टम, वन पार्टी सिस्टम, वन पार्टी सिस्टम, ये जिंदगी एक जंग है दोस्त, यूटोपिया कभी नहीं आने वाला। तुम्हें लगता है कि एक बार बस आईएएस हो जाए तो यूटोपिया, उसके बाद तो असली पार्टी शुरू हुई है भाई, उसके बाद तो टेंशन शुरू हुई है, उसके बाद तो बैंड बजना शुरू हुआ है, ठीक है, उसके बाद तो टेंशन है, उसके बाद तो 4-4 घंटे सो पाओगे शुरुआत में, बस ओनली 4 to 5 hours यू विल बी एबल टू स्लीप, उसके बाद तो प्रेशर, तुम सोचोगे ओके निशा आई एम रेडी टू स्लीप फॉर 4 to 5 hours बिकॉज आई विल बी हैविंग यू नो, कुछ नहीं होने वाला। आफ्टर बिकेम आईएएस आपको पता चलेगा कि डिस्पाइट बीइंग एट दैट लेवल, ठीक है, कैसे डांट पड़ती है, तो ये पहले मम्मी पापा डांटते, अब चीफ मिनिस्टर डांटता, ठीक है, ठीक है, पता चलेगा। अभी तो गेम शुरू हुआ है, प्रेशर का गेम, साइकोलॉजिकल टेंशन का गेम, ठीक है, बहुत टेंशन वाला काम है, बहुत टेंशन वाला काम, बीइंग अ ब्यूरोक्रेट इज बिग टेंशन, डूइंग एनीथिंग एज एन एडल्ट। इसीलिए तो कहते हैं कि दिस इज द बेस्ट फेज ऑफ योर लाइफ, अभी जो जिस उम्र में हो, दिस इज द बेस्ट फेज ऑफ योर लाइफ, राइट। दैट्स व्हाई व्हेन कोविड केम एंड आई केम टू नो दैट पीपल विल नॉट बी एबल टू गो टू कॉलेज, मेरा बड़ा दिल दुखा मेरा, मैंने कहा इनका तो बहुत गंदा कट गया पूरा जनरेशन का, राइट, बिकॉज दैट इज द केयर फ्री टाइम ऑफ योर लाइफ, कॉलेज टाइम टिल क्लास 12 पेरेंट्स आर देयर एज अ मॉनिटरिंग अथॉरिटी, राइट। कॉलेज टाइम में यू फॉल ऑन योर ओन, यू राइज ऑन योर ओन, खुद गिरते हो, खुद संभलते हो, ठीक है, जो डिसिप्लिन होता है वो सेल्फ इम्पोज्ड होता है, एक्सटर्नल इम्पोज नहीं होता, ठीक है। तो अगर आप डिसिप्लिन भी रहते हो तो वो खुद रहते हो, ठीक है, जो आवारा बनना है खुद बनो, ठीक है, तो ऐसे वो सेंस ऑफ फ्रीडम आता है, एंड उस टाइम पे सो फ्रीडम है बट रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी एज सच इट इज नॉट देयर, दैट्स व्हाई कॉलेज इज द बेस्ट टाइम। जो तुम्हारा घर में का वर्चुअल कॉलेज हो गया तुम्हारा, दैट इज द इशू। तो बाकी स्टिल जो अभी किसी की भी जिंदगी में, मेरी भी जिंदगी में जो अभी वाला साल चल रहा है वो बेस्ट है, अगला इससे बेकार होगा, ठीक है, इन टर्म्स ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज, ठीक है। सो अभी राइट नाउ डू एनीथिंग, एंड व्हाट इज एंजॉयमेंट? एंजॉयमेंट इज नॉट कि आपने मूवी देख ली, एंजॉयमेंट इज व्हाट एवर यू डू विद अ सेंस ऑफ पैशन, राइट। ऐसा ब्रेक ले रहे हो, बिल्कुल पैशनेट ब्रेक ले लो, ठीक है, ब्रेक लेकर पैशनेट ब्रेक, डांस करने का मन कर पैशनेट डांस, पढ़ाई करने का मन कर पैशनेट पढ़ाई, ड्रीम चूज किया यूपीएससी, ठीक है, फील होना चाहिए कि हाँ यार ड्रीम है, कि यार सवेरे 4 बजे उठ रहा हूँ मैं, आई एम वेकिंग अप एट 4 AM, ठीक है, और 5 AM, ठीक है, और यू नो लेट नाइट व्हाट एवर, बट फील है कि यार मैं कुछ कर रहा हूँ, जियो हर लम्हे को जियो। बाद में जो लोग हैं वो आपकी जिंदगी पे मकान बनाने लगते हैं, रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज जो है वो आपकी जिंदगी में मकान बनाने लगती हैं, कि तेरा ये वाला टाइम चीफ मिनिस्टर का, तेरा ये वाला टाइम उस वाले मिनिस्टर का, तेरा ये वाला टाइम उसका, आपकी अपने लिए बड़ा कम टाइम रह जाता है आपके लिए, यही टाइम है। तो जो करना पैशन से करो, ठीक है, उसे ही कहते हैं रियल एंजॉयमेंट, ठीक है। ऐसा मूवी देखनी है, ठीक है, दिन में 5 मूवी देख डालो, देखी हूं मैंने, एक बार बोर हो गया प्रिपेयरिंग फॉर यूपीएससी, आफ्टर दैट आई स्टार्टेड वॉचिंग मूवीज, ठीक, कुछ नहीं बाहर से ऑर्डर, ठीक, कंप्यूटर सामने, ठीक, मूवीज। सवेरे 7 बजे उठा, कॉफी वॉफी पी, मूवी देखने बैठ गया, पहली खत्म हुई, थोड़ा बहुत कुछ खाया, दूसरी देखने बैठ गया, खाते खाते दिन में मैंने कहा 4 या 5 मूवी देख डाले, मैंने कहा एंजॉय कर लो। ऐसा रियल स्टोरी है, मजाक नहीं कर रहा, रियल स्टोरी। ठीक, अति कर दो, अति, उसके रीजन है। कुछ स्टूडेंट्स बोलते हैं, मतलब इसको जल्दी रैप अप करते हैं, कुछ स्टूडेंट्स बोलते हैं कि सर मतलब ऐसा बर्न आउट हो जाता है ना, बर्न आउट, तो सर क्या करूं, बाहर जाने का मन करता है, लाइक टू गो देयर। तो मैं कहता हूं भाई एक काम करो, 2 दिन चूज कर लो, ठीक है, 1 हफ्ता चूज कर लो, ठीक है, एंड उसमें जो तुम्हें आंधी उतारनी उतार दो, ठीक है। मतलब ट्रैवल करने का मन कर रहा है, कन्याकुमारी हो जाओ, ठीक है, मतलब ट्रैवल, इतना ट्रैवल कर दो कि ट्रैवल से उब जाओ, ठीक। मूवी देखना मन कर रहा है, इतनी मूवी देख लो कि मूवी देख देख के उब जाओ। दोस्तों से मिलने का मन कर रहा है, इतना मिल लो 3-4 दिन में कि मतलब उब जाओ बिल्कुल। जहां घूमना घूमो, बाहर खाने का खाना इतना खा लो कि एसिडिटी हो जाए फिर, ठीक है। और उससे क्या है ना, ये इस वाले तो एक पढ़ाई में फायदा होगा कि वो कॉन्स्टेंटली एट द बैक ऑफ माइंड नहीं चलेगा, नहीं कॉन्स्टेंटली एट द बैक ऑफ माइंड चले। सर घर वालों की याद मिल आओ, अच्छे से मिल के आओ, पूरे 1 हफ्ते रह के आओ, ठीक है, और बात करो मम्मी पापा से, भाई बहन से, सबसे बात करो, अच्छे से मिलो, सारे रिश्तेदारों से मिल के आ जाओ। बट उसको काम को जल्दी खत्म करो कि वापस आके पढ़ाई करनी है ना। तो ये वाली भी जल्दी खत्म करो कि वापस आके पढ़ाई करनी है, तो पढ़ाई करते हैं, ठीक है। ऐसा वन पार्टी सिस्टम, दे डू नॉट वांट एनी अदर political party to be present. They will not allow any non-communist party to be there. They will not allow any bourgeois to be there, right? Because they do not want to share any political party. But for them, what is that? The idea is what? The idea is that for me, state is a weapon. What is their ideology? Their idea is, for me, state is gun. State is gun. But trigger is in my hand. Trigger is equal to my finger. Gun is in my hand, right? So fine, state क्या है? Military है, police है, power to make law है. This is power. I should wield it. Let's be practical. Why to become very utopian that there should be a stateless society? नहीं, till yesterday gun was in the hands of the bourgeois, today the gun is going to be in my hand, right? That is the idea, right? So therefore, this is theory, practice this kind of scenario, right? Economy wise, what do they want? So this is polity in the domain of economy and of private property. I have told you. So in the economy, they want what? State-led economy, state ownership of economy, state-led economy, right? So state will own everything. State will own and the state will decide everything. All decisions. No market forces. No market forces. All decisions by the state. All decisions, they will be by state. All decisions will be by state. Right? State-led economy. 5-year planning. Right? State will decide everything. Only PSUs will be there. Only government banks will be there. No private sector. Every decision, even what will be the price, government will decide. Not demand and supply. Government will decide. That is called administered price, right? So therefore, this is a communist ideology. This is how they want to. Achha, religion mein what is their ideology? Religion mein their ideology is their anti-religion. Religion mein their ideology is anti-religion. In fact, they're anti-everything. Anything which prevents a worker from bonding with another worker, right? They are totally against it. Right? So therefore, they are against ethnicity also. They are against everything, right? So why their major focus is they view the society only as either working class or bourgeois, right? So they are in favor of imposed equality, total equality, right? ऐसा. So anyways, वो खैर Karl Marx को समझ जाएगा. Total equality, मतलब imposed equality. This kind of scenario it is there. ठीक है? So that is the idea of the communist. Now, what about the others? So for example, here lies left of center, or you can call this person socialist. In practice, this person is called socialist. Right? हम practical बात कर रहे हैं अभी. ठीक है? In theory, तो even this person is a socialist. We'll understand later that communism is also a way to achieve socialism. Was Karl Marx a socialist? Yes. Was Karl Marx a communist? Yes. Was Lenin a socialist? Huh. Was Lenin a communist? Huh. Right? Aisa, this kind of scenario. But was Nehru a socialist? Huh. Was Nehru a communist? No. Right? Aisa. So therefore, socialism is like a goal, and communism is a path. There can be other paths also, right? So in practice, who is a socialist? This person, as you move from this side to this side, you become more rational and less extreme. You become more rational and less extreme. And what do you want? So basically, you look at the harshness which is there and you dilute the harshness. You're still on the left-wing side, but you are not as harsh. So words like end, armed struggle, stateless. Okay? Moderate ho jao. Don't be so harsh, right? So you will be saying here, don't end the capitalism, end the negatives of capitalism. And negatives of capitalism, right? Don't end capitalism, only end the negatives of capitalism, right? So aisa. Second answer, method armed struggle. Method, not armed struggle, right? Use the protest method, not armed method, right? So therefore, nahi, peaceful methods. Relatively peaceful methods, right? Not guns. They are relatively moderate. Then theory, stateless society, why to be extreme कुछ नहीं होना है. Stateless, बड़ा extreme सा statement हो जाता है, stateless. क्या नहीं? Use the state, right? Create a welfare state, right? Not stateless society, but a society where the state is a welfare state. A state which takes care of the poor people. A state which makes laws for the poor. A state which uses its monetary power for the poor. Right? So state which protects the poor. As a state, why do you want to end the state? Create a welfare state. Right? So therefore these people, they want what kind of a state? They want welfare state. Welfare state which is basically pro-poor. Welfare state which is pro-poor. Right? This kind of scenario. Then, for example, these people, they say what? Ye bhi tha, end private property. Correct. Do land redistribution. Do land redistribution. अमीर से गरीब को जमीन दे दो, but don't end private property. This is too harsh that no one can be a private property owner. नहीं. Do land redistribution. So they believe in land redistribution. Ryotwari le आओ. Bring Ryotwari, no problem. Actual cultivator can be a landowner, that's okay, right? And the extra land which is there with the zamindar, but don't be so harsh that you're ending the private property itself. Aisa. Then, for example, practice one party. This was extreme. Only one party. Don't be so extreme that only communists they can be having a party. Yeah, multi-party democracy, right? We go for multi-party democracy, right? So therefore, they want MPD, multi-party democracy. Because anything which is harsh, they remove it, right? Aisa. So aisa. ये भी कह रहे हैं, state is gun, it's okay, ठीक है, but we are going to use it as a welfare state, right? So stateless society नहीं चाहिए, welfare state चाहिए, ठीक है, this kind of scenario. Economy wise, only state ownership, right? No market forces, all decisions by the state. Extremism हटा दो, all decisions by the state, some or more decisions by the state. ऐसा ठीक है. All is an extreme kind of work. Right? So more decisions by the state, more role of state in the economy, more say. State has the only one who has the say in the economy. Thoda harsh, extreme. This kind of scenario, right? So माने कि एक partnership between state and private sectors, right? And we want mixed economy, है ना? ऐसा नहीं कि only state ownership, नहीं, some state ownership, some private ownership, मिली जुली सरकार. This is very extreme, right? So ऐसा. So basically here they what say? They basically talk about mixed economy. They believe in mixed economy. Mixed economy का मतलब होता है that there will be PSUs also and there will be private companies also, right? They want more market forces, but not only market forces, right? So therefore, not just market forces. हम देखेंगे in which areas we can allow market forces and in which areas we will not allow market forces. Right? For example, if I have to decide your wages, a capitalist will say only market force should decide your wage. That is force of demand and supply. I am a capitalist, I have a factory, and I am creating a demand for worker. I am searching for worker, right? That where is the worker? Where is the worker? Where is the worker? So I create a demand, right? Aisa. Now, supply, how many workers are present? If only you are present, right? If only 5 of you are present, and I was searching for 10 workers, right? So greater competition will be there for you, right? Between me, a capitalist, and another capitalist, तो मैं बोली लगाऊंगा, I'll give you 100 rupees per day. This capitalist will say 150 rupees per day, come to my factory. This capitalist will say, I'll give you 200 rupees per day, come to my factory. Right, sir? This capitalist will think 210 rupees per day. ठीक है, sir. You can also bid. You can say, below 300, I'm not going to work. Right? So I'm like, okay, 295. Right? He says, I'll give you 300. I'm like, yeah, I don't have such money. 300 पे agreement हो गया. It is the force of demand and how much is the supply that decided what will be your wage. Market forces decided your wage, right? These people say कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं है, because masses they are poor and therefore supply of workers is very very high, always much more than the demand. हमारी factories they want 1 crore workers, but number of job seekers are 5 crores. Right? So therefore, always the supply of the poor people are more in the society. The demand is relatively less. So bargaining power is not with the poor person. Right? In fact, poor person, bas kaam de do sahab. Right? Just please give me work. I'm ready to work at 100 rupees also, sir. Right? This person say, sir, I'm ready to work at 90 rupees. The other worker says, sir, 85, sir. I'll work at 85. Because supply is very very high, the demand it is relatively less, right? So because society में ऐसे ही होता है, structure ऐसा होता है, ठीक है? People at the lowest strata they are much more in number, right? So therefore as a result, right? X market forces नहीं, no market forces है भाई ये. It means no market forces, ठीक है ऐसा? So not just market forces. Example, Minimum Wages Act. 1948 Minimum Wages Act. That means government has said कि देखो ऐसा है, minimum wage must be at least, वो तो change होती रहती है with time, let's say 200 rupees. माने कि at least this much by law has to be given to any worker. This is how I am going to use the power of the state, my power of law making in favor of the poor, and I will not allow market forces to ruin the life of the poor. Right? Similarly, for example, another aspect it can be, for example, PF contribution. That is, any company who has more than 20 employees, that company has to pay some contribution to the future pension. PF is compulsory for any company which has more than 20 workers. Right? So some money will be cut from the salary of the worker, some money will be, equal amount of money will be deposited by the company owner, and therefore a pension you are creating for the working class. This kind of scenario. Right? Yes, sir. Not just market forces. I'm going to have DBT. How much money a person has, it is decided by market, right? Who has what capability, right? Whether there is a demand for my skill, right? ऐसा, and how much amount of money I can get for my skill, can नहीं? Only market forces नहीं, direct benefit transfer होगा. We'll use the economic muscle of the state to put money in the pocket of the poor. This is welfare state. That is use of legal power, use of monetary power, right? Market is not able to create jobs, right? Market, let's say, is not able to create jobs. Let's say there are a lot of machines and everything, अब तो AI भी आ गया, right? So everything is done by the AI or everything is been done by the machines, right? So therefore, who will create job? Market is not creating job. So unemployment is there. State comes, right? Especially for the low skilled workers. अब तो रिक्वायरमेंट उसकी है जो who knows greater skills, right? Skill set, skill level of skill demand, it is increasing. अगर आपको कंप्यूटर चलाना नहीं आता आज के समय पे, आप कहाँ जॉब करेंगे? आप ये बताइए. एक रिस्पेक्टेबल इनकम लेने के लिए आप कहाँ जॉब करें? क्या जॉब कर सकते हैं आप? आज के टाइम पे तो जो सिक्योरिटी गार्ड भी हैं उनको भी चेक करना पड़ता है। अच्छा मैं बताऊँ मेरी क्लास कहाँ पे, एक सेकंड सर, राइट सर, होल नंबर 5, he also needs to know how to operate a mobile. He also needs to know that this is app of email. He also needs to know that this is how to open email, this is how to zoom in. He also needs to maybe send reports on WhatsApp, something like this. So need for skilling it has increased really. तो अगर आज के टाइम पे आप पढ़े लिखे नहीं हो, अगर आज के टाइम पे आपके पास स्किल सेट ये वाली नहीं है, so where you will work? तो market will not be able to create. So for example for the unskilled workers government brought MG Narega. That is fine. If the market force is not able to create jobs, we will create jobs. Right? So all of these are features which are socialistic in nature. So even today when we have a right of center party in power, many of these features they are still going. उससे एक और हमें बात पता चलती है, कोई monopoly नहीं. There is no monopoly. In this theory, there is no monopoly. In this theory, there is no monopoly. That only these people can do this thing. ऐसा नहीं है. There can be a right of center government also. So proportion वाला part है कि 60% view आपका right है, 40% view आपका left है. This kind of scenario can be there. अच्छा एक और चीज़ है. Both of these people they believe in, these people especially communists, they believe in internationalism. Internationalism. Internationalism means global unity among all communists. Global unity of communists. In the modern history, you studied how Communist Party of India used to take directions from the Third International or the Comintern that whether to start civil disobedience movement, whether to join Quit India movement or not. Right? So global unity, that is called internationalism. That you are German later, you are French later, first you are a worker. So if basically what it means, you are worker first. Your identity, you are worker first. Nationalism क्या कहता है? Indian first. Communism क्या कहता है? Worker first. That's why the issue of Maoism, internal security problem of Maoism. Those who are Maoists, those who are fighting, right, against the Indian state, they say what? They say worker first or poor peasant first, Indian later. Right? That is the idea. So they say worker first, everything else later. You are a Hindu later, Muslim later, Christian later, Jew later. You are a German later, French later. You are a man later, you are a woman later. First you are worker. Worker first. Your identity, number one identity is worker. Right? Aisa. So therefore they believe worker first, identity. Worker is first identity. That you are a worker, that is your first identity, बाकी सब आप चीज़ बाद में है. ठीक है? This kind of scenario. So this is the extreme. ऐसा नहीं रहेगा. मतलब with respect to, for example, religion wise ऐसा कुछ नहीं है. They can be pro religion, right? But they will be secular, but not anti religion. Secular but not anti religion. They are secular but not anti religion. Internationalism, tinge of internationalism is there, so mix of nationalism and internationalism. Mix of nationalism and internationalism. Example भी देता हूँ मैं आपको. Internationalism. Example Biden. Joe Biden, right? So Trump was on the right wing side. Trump, and those who are on the right hand side, they say by nationalism. So Trump said that what is the use of United Nations for US? Right? If there is any use, then only I will give money to United Nations. Otherwise, I don't have फालतू का पैसा. For me, US first. Nationalism. Joe Biden, left of center, socialist. Right? So he restarted funding to United Nations, to WHO, etc. Mix hai. He also said कि हाँ US first, but हाँ what the responsibilities of US as a superpower are there? ठीक है, internationalism will do it. We'll try to go for it. Right? Internationalism. ऐसा. So this kind of essence it is there. ठीक है. Jawaharlal Nehru. So when Spanish Civil War took place from 1936 to 1939 to express solidarity with the left wing, right? Jawaharlal Nehru visited Spain. क्या पड़ी भाई उनको? स्पेन में तो हमारे को इंडिया को कोई इशू नहीं है. भाई नहीं, भाई right? Similarly, Hindi Chini bhai bhai, right? That also on the basis of ideology, that you are communist, we are socialist, so commonality is there, right? So ऐसा internationalism, ठीक है? So this kind of scenario, ठीक है? तो ऐसा internationalism एक mix रहेगा दोनों का, ठीक है? So this is the left wing, ठीक है? And as you gradually move, तो ये भी proportion में change होता रहता है, ठीक है? So after the break of 10 minutes, we'll take care of the right wing. अभी हमारा left wing हो गया, after 10 minutes, we'll take care of right wing. Can communism promote? Obviously, communism will also want welfare state. हमने तो कहा gun for the welfare of workers, but they will focus only on welfare of poor. Right? So now let us talk about what you call as fascism. Right? So when you talk about fascism, so fascism is extreme right wing. Fascism, it is extreme right wing. Nazism in Germany was a form of fascism, right? अच्छा, कुछ questions थे जो रह गए थे, एक दो students कुछ पूछ रहे थे, क्या है, सर वो 2 दिन ट्रैक पर वापस आने में लगते हैं घूमने के बाद, वो ठीक है, आज मूवी देखना है, देखो भाई, सर हाउ डिड Bretton Woods took place during the war, so all of this is related to that only, those are extra details, we'll come to that, ठीक है, but it is the idea that there should be a international body for maintenance of world peace, right? ऐसा और क्या है, so how Russia came into World War II? Russia came into World War II because Germany attacked Russia, right? It had signed a non-aggression pact for 10 years, right? But after capturing half of Poland, that Germany in 1941, initially defeated France, right? After capturing half of Poland, idea is what? Strategy is, let me quieten what is my fear as Germany? Two-front war. That I would have to fight France as well as USSR. ठीक है ऐसा. बाकी ठीक है तो ऐसा. So therefore, how you can come towards it? First, if you quieten one front by signing a non-aggression pact, that is a promise by the USSR that you will not attack me, right? ऐसा. And on the right hand side, now you fight. You defeat France. You have quietened the front on the France side. Now break the non-aggression pact with Russia and defeat Russia. So strategies through diplomacy, you neutralize one front. Through war, you neutralized second front. Then again through war, you neutralize the other front. Right? तो यहाँ पे pause button दबा दिया, action, victory, unpause, action, victory. So that was the strategy of Germany. Right? And therefore, when it attacked USSR, so USSR entered the war. Right? Bretton Woods, etc., वो हम discuss करते हैं. There was a desire for rebuilding the world economy, right? After the World War II, right? So therefore, IMF, World Bank, all of these scenarios, they are coming into operation after the World War II. ठीक है ऐसा. For greater economic cooperation. Fascism, it is extreme right wing, right? When it is extreme right wing, so what is the ideology? Nationalism is one of the ideology. One of the core component of fascism is nationalism, right? That is, nation is summation of people who feel one, equal and supreme. So this particular word supreme, that is national interest sarvopari, isko ek extreme level pe if you take, that after that you do not care about world peace also, right? So focus here is what? Ideology wise, one of the focus is extreme nationalism. And what is this extreme nationalism? That is, it leads to a goal, and that goal is, it leads to a goal, and that goal is great nation. Great nation, right? And if this nation has to be great, right? Nation is people. If this nation has to be great, then it has to be great in the domain of polity. It has to be great in the domain of economy. It has to be great in the domain of culture. Focus on building a great nation, right? In the domain of polity, for example, international polity. So therefore, the desire to be a world power. Desire to be a world power. internally desire for a very strong polity, that is very stable polity. Domestically, strong government or strong state. Stable, which is stable state. There is no instability caused by things like system of proportional representation. Right? If any political decision needs to be taken, it should be taken like this, in the interest of the nation. Right? What is this? Parliament may, continuous discussion, debate is taking place for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. Right? Strong nation, strong policy making, immediate. Right? Extremism in polity. Right? And because they believe in extremism in polity, strong state, very strong state, right? Because it is extreme. So therefore, here they also talk about one party system. Why? No other party should be allowed to be there apart from the fascist party, apart from the Nazi party. Why? Nation needs to be great. And therefore, who will make the nation great? The leader will make the nation great, right? So we'll come to that also, right? So as a polity mein, next component that comes into operation is there is focus on leader. One party system under a leader. That means who will make the nation great? Only this person, only this one individual can make the nation great. That is concentration of power in only one person. Right? He has the onus of making the nation great. Führer, right? Ildus Mussolini ने टाइटल लिया, Führer हिटलर ने टाइटल दिया, Cadillo फ्रैंको ने टाइटल लिया, right? This kind of scenario. That is this onus. कौन जिम्मेदार है? Who has responsibility or who will make nation great? And because it is decided that only this person can make nation great, therefore all the powers they need to be vested in him, so that national interest में कोई कमी ना रह जाए, extreme nationalism में कोई कमी ना रह जाए. Only one person should have all the power who will build great nation. Who will build great nation. And therefore, so that because focus is what? Extreme nationalism. Therefore, there needs to be whatever this person thinks will make the nation great, that is the right thing. Right? And therefore, dictatorship. Whatever he dictates, his dictatorship needs to be there. कोई time waste नहीं करना है in making the nation great. Right? By having any kind of impediments, political impediments. Right? So whatever he says, and he and his party, right, they will make the nation great. Right? There is focus on a leader. There is focus on one leader who will make the nation great. Right? At times, theoretically, there is supremacy of party. Right? Here we have said one party system. Right? So who will bring victory to communism? The party. But at times, there was some exception also. At times, there is an exception. There have been exceptions. Right? And what are these exceptions? जिनके पास जगह नहीं है, they can write down exceptions in communism or exceptions in communist. Right? ऐसा आप नया भी बना सकते हैं, कोई इशू नहीं है. Exceptions है क्योंकि ये जनरल नहीं है. At times ऐसा हुआ that here also, because of extra charismatic personality, some individual became the real center of power rather than the party being the center of power. This kind of scenario. ठीक है ऐसा. So here the leader is supreme, here the party is supreme, right? So exception हुआ कि instead of party party means communist party. Instead of party is equal to supreme, individual became supreme because of charisma or because of power struggle. कास्ट्रो के ईयर्स 1956 से लेकर कौन से साल में डेथ हुई थी, 1990s या 2000 समथिंग, एनीवेज 1950s ऑनवर्ड्स, ठीक है. फिडेल कास्ट्रो इन क्यूबा 1956 ऑनवर्ड्स, एक तरीके से फिडेल कास्ट्रो, राइट. दैट इज ऐसा हुआ एट टाइम्स दैट बिकॉज ऑफ सम वन पर्सनैलिटी, ठीक है. ऐसा टीटो in Yugoslavia, Tito in Yugoslavia 1945 onwards, right, ऐसा. So therefore these kind of people, they are becoming, actually either they are very charismatic, or because of their personal interest that they want to have huge amount of power, they said I am supreme, not the party, right. So this is an exception, this is an exception. अच्छा, तो therefore this kind of scenario. In fact, in the part, अच्छा एक और चीज मैं आपको बता दूं, state is also less than the party in the case of communist. That's why Mao Zedong was chairman of party, but president or the head of the state was different. Party is supreme. In the case of state is just a tool, state is just a gun. Party is supreme in the case of communism, right? Not the state. State will who will make the policy? Not parliament. Policy will be made by party. Who will implement the policy? State. Therefore, head of the party is much more stronger than, ठीक है, ऐसा, this kind of scenario, ठीक है. एक example बताता हूँ इसका. China has brought a law that Chinese army will be loyal not to the state but to the party. So that tomorrow, even if the state is captured by non-communists, the party has the military power to defeat the state. Party is different, state is different. Party is तो political organization. इसीलिए मैं कहता था एक simple sentence, nation is people, country is land and state is a company, an organization. अगर ये बात अपने जहन में डाल लोगे तो आपको पता चल जाएगा, ठीक है, party is also an organization, state is also another organization, right? So which organization is going to be supreme? Party. State is going to be just implementer of the decisions of the party. This is the communist way of life. This is a communist system. So therefore military, which is usually part of the state, उसको स्टेट के नीचे से निकाल के चाइना ने कहा है अब कि अब वो पार्टी के लॉयल रहेगी, उसकी फर्स्ट लॉयल्टी पार्टी के टुवर्ड्स रहेगी, ना कि उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के जिसको हम स्टेट कहते हैं, राइट. सो लॉयल्टी ऑफ दी, सो मिलिट्री विच इज यूजुअली पार्ट ऑफ द स्टेट, इट हैज बीन taken out of the state and associated with the party in China, right? This kind of idea. So coming back, so this was what? This was basically a exception, okay? But otherwise, party is supreme, right? So this leader will make the nation great. This leader will make the nation great. Therefore, dictatorship, right? And because it is dictatorship, right, that is, no entity should oppose the leader. As a result, %100% control of media and education. Why? Even a thought should not be there in a child from childhood that I can oppose the leader. Tell the child from childhood that leader is great. That leader can never be wrong. For example, in the case of Italy, it was taught in the school, Ildus is always right. In Germany, it was taught, Führer is always right. Right? So students used to chant, Führer is always right. Führer cannot be wrong. Führer is always right. Right? So therefore, in the mind also, there is no kind of opposition to Hitler. right? This kind of a one party system, this kind of a dictatorship kind of system, it is there, right? Obviously, because it is dictatorship, so therefore there cannot be any kind of democracy. There is end of other parties, that's why one party system, and there is end of elections at center and state level. There is suspension of constitution. Suspension or end of constitution. Constitution can be there which says that whatever the Führer will say that will be done, but otherwise the spirit of constitutionalism, that will not be there at all. End of constitution or constitutionalism, right? So therefore no democracy will be allowed. Total control over media will be allowed, will be there, right? So this kind of a aspect it is there. Since you are, okay, so therefore that is what your domestic policy is, right? Since you have to make your nation great, right? So therefore in the international relations, because goal is great nation, single-minded goal, great nation. Therefore, war is equal to justified tool of foreign policy. War as a tool of foreign policy. Right? Goal is great nation. Right? So means they do not matter. If it required to fight a war, we'll definitely fight a war. In fact, we would like to fight a war if it can lead to great nation quickly. Right? Empire building, therefore, is a consequence. Because our nation has to be great. It has to be great politically. Politics also includes territory. Right? So therefore, our nation cannot be just a small nation. Our territory needs to be big. We need to have a colonial empire. The world should know that a power has arrived. Right? So therefore imperialism will also be a product. Big powers, great nations, they have empires. And the world should know that it is being ruled by me. Therefore it leads to what? Therefore it leads to imperialism. Imperialism and wars. Right? Great nation, they have great territories. Domestically, that is in my continent, if I am in Europe, and in the world, that is colonies. Great nation, they have great colonial empires. Such sentences should be associated that sun never sets in the German Empire. ऐसा मुझे भी सुनना है. Why only the Britishers? They should be able to listen to this. We the Germans, we also want to listen to this. That the sun never sets in German Empire. Great nation. Right? ऐसा. I'll be a regional power or I'll be a superpower. Great nations are great powers. Right? And for that, if I have to fight war, I'll fight war. I'll not care for anything. Right? So therefore, this is polity, international polity and domestic polity. This is the kind of system which is there in extreme right wing, that is extreme fascism. Right? ऐसा, this kind of situation. What about religion? थोड़ा सा टूट के याद आ रहा है इन द सेंस कि रिलीजन थोड़ा सा एक्स्ट्रा फैक्टर हो जाता है. उसमें डिफरेंस है. इस फैक्ट टूट के नहीं, वो पहले से सोचा था कि उसको फासिज्म वर्सेस नाजिज्म में करेंगे. राइट? तो एक छोटा सा एक एस्पेक्ट आता है, अगर हम बात करें फासिज्म वर्सेस नाजिज्म की, क्या वो कल्चर में डाल सकते हैं? चलो बाद में करेंगे उसको. ठीक है, याद दिलाना मेरे को कि फासिज्म वर्सेस नाजिज्म करना, या अभी कर लें? फासिज्म वर्सेस नाजिज्म. What is the difference? So actually, fascism in Germany is basically called Nazism. So there is no difference. But interesting thing is that original fascist was Mussolini. In 1922, he came to power. His Shishya, or the person who got inspiration from Mussolini, that is Hitler, became a bigger fascist than Mussolini. Manaki extremism was even much greater in the case of Germany. As a result, you see certain scenarios are there. Here we are basically talking about Italy versus the way Nazism took place in Germany, right? So for example, first point you see with respect to religion. So with respect to religion, Mussolini, what do we learn from modern history? History keeps on repeating itself. Two kind of states were there, successor states, right? So in the successor state and for example, Mysore. So what is the difference between successor states and Mysore? In the successor states, diplomacy was followed. You have a Tankha Jagir, I'll convert into a Watan Jagir, please shake hands. You have money, I'll make you Mansabdar, please shake hands, right? But in the case of Mysore, what was there? Brute power. That is oligarchs. You have military power, I'll fight you and defeat you. Deshmukhs, you have monetary power, you will not collect land revenue from tomorrow, my government officials will collect. Right? Extremism. ठीक है सर? तो एक diplomacy है. तो similarly in the case of religion, Rome is the capital of the Christianity. It is in Italy. So, and Rome had not legally recognized the kingdom of Italy since the time in 1870 papal states were taken over for unification of Italy. Right? So Mussolini in 1920s, he created a new country called Vatican City, right? That is ki naraz mat ho, we'll give you a country, a city country, right? Vatican City. There the Pope, you can be political ruler also. Plus we'll give you compensation. जो भी आपका नुकसान हमने किया, whatever losses we made to you in 1870, we'll give you money also, right? So, Hitler like jail में डालो, jail. They should not be, because power is what? Economic power plus political power plus social power, right? So any socially powerful person, any clergy talking against Hitler, that this Hitler is doing some things against God, मैं बताता हूँ, चल, jail, concentration camps, right? चूं नहीं निकलनी चाहिए मेरे खिलाफ, right? So Hitler was much more, so उसमें वो anti-religion काम किया. Why? Because religion can act as a tool for some people to oppose me. Right? Aisa. Napoleon acted like Italy. Right? Napoleon acted like Italy. Concordat. Right? That is church, you have lost a lot of lands, etc. Let us enter into partnership. Right? Aisa. Government, you will be allowed to have seminaries. That is religious schools. Right? You will be given some compensation also, etc. State will pay you salary, but you say Napoleon has the right to rule as per God. Let us enter into a partnership. तो दो तरीके, डिप्लोमेसी है या फिर लठ है, ठीक है? So लठ you understand? Stick or diplomacy, right? So this kind of scenario, right? So for example, with respect to, so basically he followed diplomacy, or he followed dispute resolution. Them means clergy. So he followed diplomacy, dispute resolution with church. He imprisoned them. That is the idea. Similarly, for example, there was a status of a king, right? So there existed a king, right, in Italy. That means from the perspective of law, who is the number one authority in Italy? King. Then comes king's prime minister called Il Duce, called Mussolini. That means legally there was some authority which was bigger than Il Duce. King existed as a legal authority above Il Duce. That is the idea. But here, in the case of Hitler, there was no legal authority above Hitler. or Hitler is equal to top authority. Hitler is top authority. That means legally, and Ildus was responsible to king. And in Germany, no one can remove Hitler, right? Because he is not responsible to anyone, right? So when executive is responsible to parliament, so parliament can pass a no confidence motion, and therefore parliament can remove executive, right? So in Germany, no one had the power to remove Hitler legally, right? Only a revolt could have removed him. But here, at least legally, there was someone who can technically remove Mussolini, right? Similarly, in the case of यहाँ पे racism was absent, no racism. Although later Mussolini became such great believer of Hitler that he also started following anti-Jewish policies. But the people of Hitler were like, what? There is no anti-Jew issue here. Why just because you are a fan of Hitler, so you are starting killing, imprisoning Jews? Are you mad? What? Right? So as such, there was no racism against Jews. Against Jews. इसको बोला जाता है anti-Semitism. That is no anti-Semitism. No racism against Jews को बोला जाता है no anti-Semitism. Right? ऐसा. यहाँ पे, so there was Jews, they were killed in concentration camps. Their citizenship was taken away. They were not allowed to be citizens. No citizenship to Jews, right? So therefore, that is the difference between Hitler and Mussolini. He is very harsh against Jews, whereas he is not harsh. Then another difference is ability. That is, here there was low efficiency as ruler. Be it economy, be it military, be it popularity. He was popular, but if you will compare popularity among people, following among people, that means when he will dictate, some of the people will say, yes, he'll do, and after going out of the room meeting, but in the case of Hitler, yes, Führer. And even after the room, Führer has told me to do this, I need to do this somehow. Right? So therefore, popularity of Hitler was much more greater. Control over the hearts and minds of the people of Hitler was much more greater as compared to Mussolini. Right? So therefore, so he gave a lot of orders, but people, they did not follow it. Right? And when people felt that he is not working for our interest, he was removed also. Right? But in this case, there was total control. Control was much bigger. There was total control. There was total control and there was high efficiency. Even in war, for example, bad performance was there in World War II. Bad performance was there in World War II. Whereas in case of Hitler, great success was there, at least until 1942 in the World War II. Hitler was able to defeat France, significant damage to Russians also, right? So therefore, popularity was total control and very high efficiency in the domain of economy, right? So for example, in 1939, Hitler declared that is year of zero unemployment. Year of zero unemployment. Which also brings us to a miscellaneous question, जो हम देखेंगे. Year of zero unemployment, right? ऐसा. Then in the domain of military, right? So great success was there, right? Great success. And in case of popularity also, great fan following, right? It was very, very high and total control was there. That means he was able to achieve the goal of fascism much, much better than the original fascist Mussolini. राइट ऐसा. ठीक है, तो ये है. ठीक है, बाकी ये खुशखबरी भी है. आई विल गिव यू नोट्स ऑल्सो. ठीक है, हैंड रिटन नोट्स आई विल ट्राई टू अरेंज एंड आई विल गिव इट टू यू ऑफ दिस कंटेंट. लिखो है, जैसे मैंने कहा आई विल गिव यू नोट्स ऑल्सो. पेन उठाओ लिखो, ये भी जरूरी है? अलग लेवल पे चला गया लौंडा। लिखो लिखो, ठीक ठीक। आई विल गिव यू नोट्स, माने कि जो मुझे इसको इसकी जो एक डिक्टेशन है, आई विल ट्राई टू गिव इट टू यू, ठीक है, ऐसा जो डिक्टेशन है, सो दैट फाइन, दिस फ्लो चार्ट्स अंडरस्टैंडिंग वाइज, बट ठीक है, बिकॉज इट इज बिगिनिंग, तो सेंटेंस भी दे दूंगा, एंड थोड़ा सा और फॉर्मल सेंटेंसेस चाहिए एग्जैक्टली अबाउट द सेम थिंग, राइट? सो डेफिनेटली इफ यू रीड द विजनाइज मटेरियल, सो यूल फाइंड द सेम थिंग्स देयर आल्सो, राइट? तो मैं आपको तीनों चीज दे रहा हूँ, फ्लो चार्ट भी दे रहा हूँ आपको मैं, उसके बाद जो सामान बिकता नहीं है उसके सब दे देना फ्री, ये भी ले लो वो भी ले लो, तो वर्ल्ड स्टेक क्वेश्चन नहीं आने ना, तो ये भी ले लो है, डिक्टेशन भी दे दूंगा है, एंड फॉर्मल नोट्स भी दे दूंगा। ऐसा ही होता है ना, जो माल बिकता नहीं है उसके लिए, है ना, फ्री, एक के साथ एक फ्री, मार्केट बन गई ना। अब गुरु शिष्य परंपरा नहीं है, मार्केट है, ठीक? आप क्लाइंट हो, ठीक है, और यहाँ सेलर, ठीक है, मैं हूं नहीं पर ऐसे, ताकि आपको वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री आप नेग्लेक्ट करने वाले ही हो, ठीक है, तो ताकि आपको ये लगे कि ठीक है, कभी आप सोचो कि अच्छे से प्रिपेयर करना है तो आपको ईज हो, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस, ठीक है ना। सो ऐसा, तो अकॉर्डिंगली वो भी चीज़ दे दिया जाएगा, ठीक है, बट अभी समझने की ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है, ठीक है ना, बिकॉज आप बाद में वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री को नेग्लेक्ट करने वाले हो, ठीक है, सो दैट्स वाई अभी जो हम कर रहे हैं समझ के करें, एंड समझ ज़्यादा अच्छी इससे बनती है, ठीक है, फ्लो चार्ट मेथड से, दैट इज द आइडिया। सो टोटल कंट्रोल वाज देयर, ठीक है, ऐसा great amount of fan following, which brings us to a miscellaneous question, and what is the miscellaneous question? Last class में student पूछा था, अच्छा question था। The question was कि sir, if Germany was devastated by the World War I's Treaty of Versailles, right? If Germany was having an economic crisis in 1922 when occupation of Ruhr took place in 1922-23, right? So after that, sir, how is it? And then again 1929 Great Depression, which again crashes the German economy. So how is it that just in 6 years, from 1933 to 1939, Hitler is able to declare 1939 as a year of zero unemployment? How he is able to, from where he is getting the money for military, right? So answer to that particular question is that is, if there is a question, small question, miscellaneous question, that World War II was made inevitable by Hitler, was made inevitable by Hitler. So yes, you will be talking about, you know, his aggressive foreign policy. He'll talk about his aggressive foreign policy. He'll talk how he broke the Treaty of Versailles one after another from 1933 to 39. वो जो हमने handout खोला था उसमें index बना हुआ था ना, rearmament was introduced in 1934, right? Then Anschluss was done in 1938. उससे पहले conscription was introduced. तो ठीक है, वो ले आप लिखो। बट एक और चीज़ है जो कि interesting चीज़ है, जो कि economic angle है। Economic angle is to prove, to make the nation great. Right? See how your nation can be great till the point of time there is unemployment. क्या great nation में unemployment होती है? Right? How can you be your nation great if your country is dependent on imports? Right? So dependency needs to be zero. A great nation cannot be dependent. It cannot have poverty. It cannot have, you know, struggling agriculture sector with no food security. Everything needs to be great, right? That is the requirement. Economic greatness. Your economy also needs to be great, domestically also and internationally also, right? Aisa. For that, the private sector of Germany was under turmoil because we have seen so much of negatives are there. So state took lead. So this is also interesting point of commonality, that in the case of communism and socialism, the state takes certain responsibility in the economic sector. In fascism also, the state takes lead in the economy for. But goal is different. Goal is great nation, right? Aisa. So therefore here lead was taken, and in the economy what Hitler did, basically here the state took lead. The state took lead for revival of economy. The state took lead for revival of economy. क्या क्या किया? For example, agriculture sector से start करें. So here, minimum support price. My farmers, great nation's farmer, they cannot be poor. I'll give minimum support price, right? So achieve food security. How can great nation? MSP, for food security. Because a great nation cannot be food insecure, right? In the domain of agriculture sector. This kind of scenario it is brought. Then to the industry. Tax breaks and other incentives like cheap loans. Okay, private sector, you want loan? Take cheap loan. That is low interest rate loan. Okay, banks give loans, right? Any industrialist who wants to make the nation great by contributing to the economy, give him loans, right? What is your cost? Tax? No tax. Give very less tax, no issues, right? I'll give you incentive. Whichever sectors I want to grow, right? I'll give tax breaks. That is, I'll reduce my income. State will reduce its income. Now, in an industrialized economy, masses will be workers. Workers will be masses in any industrialized economy. And IR, to masses if IR, industrial revolution, and IR has already taken place in Germany in 1870, right? So therefore, what kind of a nation is summation of people? What kind of a great nation will have low wages for the people? That they are not able to put food on the table for their family? ये कोई great nation हुआ? Wages of the workers, they needs to be high. Pressure, right? Directions are given to capitalists. Direction to capitalists for increase in wages. State will bring social security, pension. State will bring social security, pension. Life of the worker, हाँ क्या करते हो? What do you do? At what time do you come to the factory? Some morning 7, 8 a.m. I come to the factory. Are you able to have lunch break? हाँ sir, 15 minutes of lunch break. What time do you go home? Sir, रात का 8-9 बज जाता है, 8-9 p.m. When do you spend time with your family? Sir, when did you go for last holiday? Free movie tickets to workers. Free cruise tickets to workers. Right? Enjoy. Enjoy life. Take a break. मोल लो. ये एक्चुअली में हुआ था, मैं मजाक नहीं कर रहा था. Cruise, movie tickets, they were actually given. It was not just for fun, I said. Actually, they were given. Right? To get support of the political benefit is also there because competition is the communists. Right? So therefore, Nazi party wanted to attract workers. Mussolini also wanted to attract workers. Right? That this is what I am giving you, what are communists giving you? Right? So this kind of scenario. Right? So state took lead. Okay? Working class, capitalist class, and your peasantry class or the agrarian class, right? As a result, what will happen? Plus huge amount of military, that is rearmament. Rearmament, conscription. So when the state says that I'm going to build a huge army, then obviously salary has to be given. Huge army, navy, submarines, I'm going to build submarines, that is I'm going to have air power, I'm going to have naval power, right? I'm going to have territorial power. So therefore, for this, huge amount of expenditure is required, right? Now, for this, what is required? All of this, it requires huge amount of money. And where is the money? What is the income? This needs of money. From where the money comes? Money comes from taxes. Government earns money through taxes. वो तो आपने tax break दे दिया. And expenditure is very, very high as compared to the income. income of state, but the state can do so. Why? Because you are yourself ICICI Bank, you are yourself SDFC, right? So your SDFC, you give whatever loan you want to give. That is print money. You can print unlimited amount of money. You can print unlimited amount of money. Keep printing. But that will lead to what? पैसा क्या है? पैसा is just a symbolic representation of value, right? If this product is there and if there is 1 crore rupee, MRP is 1 crore rupee. If there is only 100 rupee, MRP is 100 rupee. पैसा क्या है? Real value तो ये है, this pen, right? So this leads to what? This basically, it basically leads to taxes है, but यहाँ तो tax break है, tax incentives दे दिया आपने. Right? So therefore this leads to what? This basically leads to fiscal deficit. This leads to budget deficit and fiscal deficit. When fiscal deficit is there, what it leads to? It leads to, when fiscal deficit is there, right? So this is a huge fiscal deficit. So when huge fiscal deficit is there, so therefore economy will crash soon. And you need to prevent economic crash, right? How do you prevent economic crash? You need to match value with money in economy. You need to add value, actual value, right, to the economy. राइट ऐसा इस टाइप का करना पड़ेगा. ठीक है ऐसा. अब ये कैसे आएगा? हाउ? ए GDP growth, that is with whatever money you gave, people are producing more value. What is the definition of GDP? Gross domestic product, the value produced in the economy in 1 year, not money, value produced in the economy in 1 year. Okay? So fine, with whatever loans etc. you gave, but this is a slow process. And therefore to prevent economic crash, you need to add, because fiscal deficit से inflation हो जाएगा. अब एक ही पेन है, आपने सब लोगों को 1 करोड़ रुपए दे दिया. You gave every person 1 crore rupee, right? और मतलब you gave every person such amount of money that total money in the economy is let's say 1 crore. Right, say there are, let's say, whatever 100 people are there, right? So therefore, you gave 10 lakh rupees, right? Or you gave 1 lakh rupees to everyone. 100 people are there, you gave 1 lakh rupees to everyone. But pen to एक ही है. There will be a really fierce competition for this. It will lead to huge amount of inflation, right? ऐसा तो value needs to be added. So लोगों की जेब में पैसा तो डाल दिया. एक तो more pens are getting manufactured, but it is taking time. Right? So meanwhile, I need to add pen. तो तेरा पेन ले लिया. तू कौन? ऑस्ट्रिया. तू कौन? चेकोस्लोवाकिया. तेरा सुडेटलैंड ले लिया. तू कौन? सार, SAAR, which was there with League of Nations. तू कौन? Danzig. तू कौन? Half of Poland. If I have to prevent economic crash, I need to take, ले लो. I need to take value from others. And where is value? Value is in the form of factories which are there in other territory, value is in the form of natural resources which are there in the other territory, value is in the form of labor which is there in the other's territory, and therefore my goal of first, मैंने क्या बात कही? Third Reich shall be a unified Reich. Right? But real reason behind that nationalism was economy. Economy. And there's huge amount of pressure on Hitler to prove to the people that he is a great leader, right? And otherwise also he was nationalist. I'm not saying that it was just a game. He did believe in whatever he was saying, right? He definitely believed in whatever he was saying, right? So he is an extreme nationalist, right? But there's great amount of this thing, zid ki nahi, okay? So therefore, second option is annexations, and therefore war. Therefore war, right? War is inevitable. So two options are there. या तो लड़ाई चूज कर लो या इकोनॉमिक क्रैश चूज कर लो. क्या एक ग्रेट नेशन इकोनॉमिक क्रैश चूज कर सकता है? वॉर चूज कर सकता है? हाँ. right? So that's how, by printing huge amount of money, he was able to, in a very short amount of time, able to meet, right? Plus Germans were trying to be very efficient also. But apart from this, if you notice that gradually from 1933, he's also getting territories. 1935 he's getting territory, 1937, right? 1935 he's getting territory of Saar, right? 1938 he's getting territories, etc. So this is a kind of situation. Okay. So this is a question. Next comes the aspect we were discussing about. So this is in the domain of economy. So in the domain of economy, great nation in the domain of economy. So therefore, this is very simple. So therefore, you have to be net exporter. You have to be net exporter. You cannot be dependent on imports. You have to be net exporter. You cannot be dependent on the world, right? You have to be food secure, right? A food secure nation, right? In the terms of economy, your GDP needs to be high. Your GDP needs to be high. There cannot be any poverty in a great nation. There cannot be any unemployment in the great nation. There cannot be any poor peasants. मतलब वो तो poverty में cover हो गया खैर, ठीक है? Poverty, right? With respect to working class or with respect to peasantry, there cannot be any, right? So you see, here is an interesting thing. Here, great nation is acting against laissez-faire. Here, great nation is resulting in desire for putting control on capitalist also. Here, this focus on great nation, this leads to what you see. ये जो है, कुछ लोग ऐसा पूछते हैं, सर नाजी पार्टी में, if you look at the full form of Nazi party, there is a word called socialist there. Nationalist Socialist Party, इस तरीके से उनका नाम था. So, but you are saying that this is extreme right-wing party. Two reasons were there to add that word socialist. A, to attract the workers away from communist party. कि communists they are saying they are अरे हम भी socialist हैं. Socialist it only just to attract, right? They are totally on the extreme right wing. They are not socialist at all. But two reasons: to attract workers, right? Because masses they are poor, so to attract poor as a support base. And second, poor are masses, therefore they are people, therefore they are nation, and nation needs to be great, right? So two reasons to build a great nation. To make nation माने की people, right? Great. Janta, to make nation great, right? And second thing, plus to attract masses away from communists, away from communists. This thing is being done. It leads to what? It leads to pro, poor or some socialist features, even when socialist features, even when you are extreme right wing. Some socialist features even when you are extreme right wing. Why? गोल निर्धारित कर लेना great nation. ठीक है, इसीलिए मैंने कहा था कोई मोनोपोली नहीं है that only the left wing will work for the extreme left wing will work for the poor. Even the extreme right wing can work for the poor. Why? Because poor are masses, masses are nation, a great nation. Right? And that is how confusion was there in the heart of the worker. That should I follow communists or should I follow Nazis? ठीक, this kind of situation. Right? So ऐसा. एक और चीज है, Who is supreme? The leader is supreme. So socialist features. So therefore you see this is anti-laissez-faire. This feature is anti-laissez-faire. फेरे में डबल आती ना आर, डबल आर आता ना, सिंगल आता है, लाइजेस सिंगल आता है, हाँ, दिस इज एंटी लाइजेस फेरे, माने एक लगाम लगी कैपिटलिज्म को, बेलगाम कैपिटलिज्म इज लाइजेस फेरे, अनरिस्ट्रिक्टेड कैपिटलिज्म ओनली मार्केट फोर्सेस लाइजेस फेरे, टोटल फ्रीडम टू प्राइवेट सेक्टर टू डू एनीथिंग, टू डू व्हाटएवर, टोटल, राइट, ऐसा, इससे लगाम लगेगी. Because then the state is bringing minimum support price, which is against market forces. The government is deciding price, not the market forces. The government is forcing the private sector to do something which is not 100% freedom, right? Aisa, this is what is happening. And second aspect is there. Second aspect is there. What? Because who is supreme? Because supreme is leader. Supreme is leader. Therefore, leader can give directions to the businessman also. Hello, Mr. XYZ company, you need to produce more and more cars. Why? Because I feel that if this sector booms, a lot of employment will be created and my nation economy will become great. What is the number one goal? Great nation. You are just a tool. So I'm pro capitalism, but number one goal is great nation. So capitalists do that. Capitalists do that. Capitalists do that. So we see a weird that on the left wing side, in the name of pro-poor, these people, they bring 5-year plans and tell that in the next 5 years, this should be done by this should be done in the economy, right? Communists will say in the next 5 years, PSUs, government companies, they should have this much amount of steel. Socialists, they will say that in the next 5 years, private sector should do this and government sector should do this. Here, for some other reason, right, because nation is supreme and leader is also supreme, and to build a great nation, here also direction they can be given to the capitalist. So therefore, if you are a capitalist, will you choose extreme? Will you choose extreme either on the left hand side or on the right hand side? That is why capitalists, they always like a moderately strong state. ऐसा नहीं कि मेरी छाती पे आके बैठ जाए. A moderately strong state. That's why the capitalists, they like multi-party democracy, some competition. ठीक है? If you'll make policies against me, in the next election उसे fund कर दूंगा. Or I'll fund all of you. So सरकार किसी की भी हो, policies will be in my favor. Right? That's a extreme power capitalist does not like, either on the left wing side or on the right wing side. But right wing, extreme right wing is still better because they are not ending private property at least. Or extreme left wing to ends private property. ठीक, this kind of scenario. So supreme कौन है? Leader. Therefore, for great nation, माने की, and therefore this is also against laissez-faire. Laissez-faire means total freedom. This is also against laissez-faire. Leader is supreme, right? So therefore कुछ चीजें कॉमन निकल रही हैं दोनों एक्सट्रीम साइड्स पे, ठीक है, बट रीजन डिफरेंट है कि ये क्यों कर रहे हैं उन चीजों को, ठीक है, दिस काइंड ऑफ सिचुएशन. सो देयरफॉर दिस इज द फोकस इन द इकोनॉमी. देन नेक्स्ट एस्पेक्ट इज focus in the culture, right? So culture mein everyone needs to believe that nation is great and we have to make our nation great. So in the domain of culture, what needs to be promoted? Ideology of sacrifice or idea of sacrifice for nation. Idea of sacrifice for nation. That means extreme nationalism needs to be promoted extreme nationalism and extreme patriotism needs to be. Nationalism, I'm adding the word extreme. Right? Extreme means then even if nuclear bomb has to be dropped, drop it. That is extreme. Nationalism में कोई problem नहीं है. Extreme nationalism में it has been witnessed that it has resulted in problems in the world at times. Why? Because how do you define nation? Nation means we, the Germans. So only their interests are paramount. No one else's interests matter. Right? So this goes against the idea of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Right? Aisa. So idea of extreme nationalism, idea of sacrifice for the nation, right? Idea of belief in leader. Belief in leader's ability to make nation great, obviously. Right? Idea of animosity or anti-communism. Idea of military greatness, military eco greatness. This needs to be promoted. कहाँ पे ये सब कहाँ promote करें? Education में, ठीक है? Obviously, culture. Culture means कि language, our history, they also needs to be promoted, right? So ये सब चीज़ कैसे होगा? How this will be done? Tool will be education, and tool will be your media. Tool will be media. But that has to be under total control, right? And therefore they are to be under these things. They are to be under state control. Total word is important because extreme. Total control. Total control. Right? Under total control. This kind of scenario. Okay? So education media therefore under state's total control. Because इसी से ही ये सब चीज़ होगा. ठीक है? तो that is the idea. Right? So culture में ये सब चीज़ promote करना है, economy में ये सब चीज़ promote करना है, and polity में ये सब चीज़ promote करना है. So this is extreme right wing, extreme fascism. ठीक है? In India there is no fascist party. In India there is only right of center and left of center. If in a very neutral way you will see, there is no extreme left wing party also, which is popular. Right? Issue is in India is right of center or left of center. And also there is no monopoly. For example, ऐसा नहीं है that only the extreme right wing or the right wing has monopoly over nationalism. नहीं. Mao Zedong was a communist, but he was also a nationalist. So therefore, ऐसा ये एक theory है, but इसमें ऐसा ज़रूरी नहीं है that always. Another exception is there. So in the domain of exception, another exception is there. For example, China from 1976 onwards, China 1976 onwards क्या किया? ये कहा कि पॉलिटी में OPS, one party system, that is communism, that is communist party, right? But economy में I am going to have capitalism. Economy में I am going to have capitalism, right? इनके capitalism को ये capitalism but कैसा है? Capitalism में ऐसा है कि there will be a strong private sector but also strong money earning PSUs. So today 1/3 of the GDP it is contributed by the government companies or the PSUs. That means state itself became a capitalist. Strong money earning PSUs का मतलब क्या है? That means state became capitalist itself. State became businessman itself. Right? So this is an exception that in the domain of economics you are becoming capitalist, but in the domain of polity you are continuing to be one party system. Right? Why did they adopt this? They understood that engine of capitalism is much better as compared to engine of communism, communist economy, right? So they realize that market forces desire for profit. When everyone is desiring to be rich, this brings a zeal in the whole population to work hard and earn more, work hard and earn more, work hard and earn more. सुबह मैं क्यों उठूं? पैसा और कमाना है, पैसा 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 पैसा, राइट? ऐसा ताल मूवी देखी, ताल ताल मूवी देखो यार, अनिल कपूर, ठीक है? मामा जी, याद है मामा जी? मामा जी की सीख और मम्मी की सीख। माता कहती थी भला करो, मामा कहते जलन माँ कहती थी ठीक है आनंद के लिए म्यूजिक बनाओ, मामा कहते पैसा ठीक है जलन जलन लाओ, ठीक है? एनिमल स्पिरिट्स, राइट? सो कैपिटलिज्म के जो एनिमल स्पिरिट्स हैं, डिजायर टू अर्न मनी नॉट जस्ट ऑफ वन पर्सन बट ऑफ ईच एंड एवरी पॉपुलेशन, ईच एंड एवरी इंडिविजुअल, each and every individual wanting to earn profits, so whole nation is after profits, तो economy बढ़ती है. So therefore what is the idea? What the idea is who is sitting in the driving seat? Communist Party. But which is the car? Ferrari. माने कि capitalism. Because capitalism is a tool. If a communist party is a rich communist party, they feel they will be able to protect the communism in politics much better. They'll have the money power, they'll have the military power to defeat any पॉलिटिक्स में मल्टी पार्टी डेमोक्रेसी को आप डिफीट कर पाओगे. गोल क्या है, किस लिए करना है ऐसा? फॉर नो एमपीडी. ऐसा क्यों चाहते हैं, कैसे जस्टिफाई करते हैं? हाउ डू दे जस्टिफाई? दे जस्टिफाई इज फॉर नो एमपीडी बिकॉज दे बिलीव दैट एमपीडी प्लस कैपिटलिज्म, they believe that MPD plus capitalism leads to states capture, by capitalists. That is their belief. They believe that if there is a multi-party democracy in polity, and if there is capitalism in economy, then it leads to capture of the state by bourgeois. That's why in polity we are not going to have multi-party democracy, but in economics we are fine with capitalism. I'll give you example. Brian Mr. Lake Jack Ma episode, right? Or for example crony capitalism. When you use the phrase crony capitalism, है क्या? As I told you, if multi-party democracy is there, then a need is created among the political parties to win elections. For that, you need money. For that, you become dependent on capitalists. And once you take money from capitalists to win elections, you may have to make policies as per that capitalist. And what if the capitalist, they pay money to all the party? Then whichever party comes to power, right, that party will still make the laws for the capitalist. That means government will be of the bourgeois, for the bourgeois, monetarily by the bourgeois. Just voting took place. But even when the poor voted, so real policies were made for the rich only. This should not be there. Policy making should always be done with an intent of equality in society. But we can all be equally rich, or we can all be rich. Why communism has to be poor? So let us have the engine of capitalism, right? But policy making में हम ऐसा करेंगे कि imbalance कम करेंगे. मतलब कि गोल यहाँ पे क्या है? गोल एक तरीके से हो गया सो बेसिकली गोल एक और तरीके से हम डिफाइन कर सकते हैं, गोल इज minimize concentration of wealth, minimize concentration of wealth in hands of few, in hands of few. And for this you need OPS with Communist Party in power, with CPC, Communist Party in power. So rich, everyone be rich, but ऐसा gap नहीं रहना चाहिए that some minority elites they are extra rich and masses they are poor, or very huge differences there. For that, the real political power needs to be not in the hands of the capitalist but in the hands of Communist Party, right? So ठीक है, भागो, अच्छे से भागो, कोई दिक्कत नहीं, earn money. I am also earning money. 1/3 GDP I am contributing. I am PSU, government company. But ऐसा जो ये नेगेटिव समाज में होता है, that masses are being oppressed by some rich, ऐसा, ठीक है? So therefore, it what basically also means, what do you mean by Jack Ma episode? Jack Ma episode means no say. So what is the idea? Idea is no say to capitalist in polity. No say, एक बार ये बात पूरी, no say to capitalist in polity. Example, जैक मा. जैक मा याद है आपको? जैक मा अलीबाबा का हेड, became very famous. Alibaba, multi-billion-dollar company, getting listed in US also. Chinese state is saying, हाँ खेलो, खेलो हो बे खेलो. We should also have multinational companies, no issues. Alibaba, go and with your 40 chores, loot the West, no problem. Go ahead, enjoy life. But then Jack Ma, probably because of influence of some investors who had invested in his company or something XYZ, right? He started talking politics. He started saying that there needs to be more reforms, right? In the ऐसा hint करने लगा that political reforms needs to be there. गायब हो गया, गायब हो गया. दुनिया ढूंढ रही है वेरी जैक मा. जैक मा करे माँ वेरी जैक मा. जैक मा को मम्मी याद दिला दी कम्युनिस्ट स्टेट ने. ठीक, आज वो तो thankfully is not in jail. I would not have been surprised had he been in jail. Must have been in jail for some time. Nowadays, someone told me that he is teaching in Singapore, being a lecturer. The Chinese state is very clear since 1976. In politics, चूं नहीं निकलनी चाहिए मुंह से. In economics, पैसा कमाओ, कोई दिक्कत नहीं. Enjoy, no problem. That is the idea of the Chinese state, right? And that is the rationale. So this is an exception, and it is because of this reason that USSR in 1991 disintegrated, but China survived. Communism in the whole world ended, but not in China, because they had Ferrari. They had engine of capitalism, and therefore their car was strong. That's why USSR 1991 disintegrated. Eastern Europe disintegrated. Communism gone. But China survived. और ये समझ नहीं आ रहा यूएस को इसका क्या करे. They are not able to understand. क्योंकि economic weakness in China वो तो है नहीं because of capitalism. Right? So that's why US will keep on building, West keeps on building the narrative Tiananmen Square, Tiananmen Square, Tiananmen Square. भूलने नहीं देते चाइनीज को. Tiananmen Square, Tiananmen Square, Tiananmen Square, ऐसा करते हैं. उनका होप है कि कुछ ऐसा हो जाए, right? ऐसा. So and what is the dream or hope of Chinese Communist Party? Prevent economic crisis, prevent economic crisis, prevent economic crisis. Because good economics is good politics. Till the point of time OPS is giving you good economics. क्या problem है बे? Burger खाना. What problem do you have? गाड़ी चला तू. तेरे को क्या करना है मल्टी पार्टी डेमोक्रेसी से? Why do you want to be नेता? नेता काहे बनना है बे? और नेता बनना है तो join the Communist Party. अलग नेता काहे बनना है? That is the issue, right? हाँ, if economy fails, that is the only hope for the West. That if economy fails, people come out on the streets because of anger, and they blame that our economy failed because we have सच अ गवर्नमेंट। बस चाइना को वो प्रिवेंट करना है, अदरवाइज सिस्टम चलता रहेगा जैसा चलता हुआ है, कोई टेंशन वाली बात ही नहीं, राइट। दिस इज अ एक्सेप्शन, ठीक है। सो दिस इज द आइडिया। एक साइड हो जाओ सर, सर ये तो देख लो क्या क्या पूरा हो गया हमारा। आइडियोलॉजी पूरा हो गया, ठीक है। फासिस्ट आइडियोलॉजी पूरा हो गया, ठीक है। एक छोटा सा बस एक और चीज बताना, सवा 12 बजे तो वैसे भी हमारी क्लास चलती है, 10 मिनट तो दे दो यार। अरे 10 मिनट तो दे दो यार। अरे 10 मिनट यार, स्लो नहीं चल रही है, 12 बज के 5 मिनट, 10 मिनट 10 मिनट दे दो यार। एक खाका सा क्लियर कर लेने दो भाई। देखो मुझे तो पता नहीं तुम्हें मजा नहीं आ रहा क्या यार, पता नहीं मुझे तो इतना मजा आ रहा है, मैं तो वर्ल्ड हिस्ट्री के केस में तो मुझे छोड़ दो बस। ऐसे ऐसे जैसे एक कलाकार पेंट करता चला जाता है वैसे फ्लोचार्ट बनते चले जाते हैं ऐसे, ठीक है। और तुम्हें लिखवा भी नहीं रहा तुमको, आइडिया सुन लो बस एक बार कार्ल मार्क्स का, एक बस मार्क्स का आइडिया सुन लो। आइडिया है इसमें, कोई वाली बात नहीं है, इसमें कुछ लिखना भी नहीं है, मैं आपको नोट्स भी दूंगा। आपको लग रहा है कि कुछ है दिक्कत, तो कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, नोट्स मिलेंगे आपको। नोट्स मतलब हैंड रिटन नोट्स, ठीक है ना। ऐसा फ्लोचार्ट के भी नोट्स मिल जाएंगे इस वाले केस में, आई गिव यू फ्लोचार्ट नोट्स ऑल्सो, ठीक है। बट कार्ल मार्क्स का आइडिया देखो, जो कार्ल मार्क्स है, मार्क्सिज्म को साइंटिफिक सोशलिज्म भी कहा जाता है। मार्क्सिज्म इज आल्सो नोन एज साइंटिफिक सोशलिज्म। व्हाई इट इज, इसको लिखने की जरूरत नहीं है, व्हाई इट इज कॉल्ड एज साइंटिफिक सोशलिज्म बिकॉज कार्ल मार्क्स वाज आल्सो इकोनॉमिस्ट, and in a very empirical manner, in a very scientific manner, he tried to study, you know, that what is, so that's why you call him Das Kapital 1867, right? It was a very 4 volumes or 3 volumes, right? 1 volume he could not complete also, but something like, but so basically like an economist he tried to develop a critique. So like moderates, they developed a economic critique of the British colonialism. Similarly Karl Marx developed the economic critique of the capitalism, right? And what was his idea? His basic idea is, he basically said that capitalism, it leads to conflict. It leads to conflict, right? So conflict in society, right? What is the conflict in society? Conflict in society is this, that profit is equal to, capitalism leads to profit motive. So profit is equal to, ठीक है, leads to conflict because of profit motive. And if I'm doing any work, if I'm a capitalist and if I'm doing because of profit motive and private property, ये दो चीजें हैं, मतलब if I'm the owner of a factory and I'm working, why? Because of profit motive, right? So as a result there is a conflict in society. Conflict is what? That my profits are revenue minus cost, and wages of the working class, therefore they are inversely proportional to profits of capitalist class, कैप सी और बुर्जुआ, जो भी कैपिटल बुर्जुआ यूज करते हैं, कैपिटलिस्ट जो भी, ठीक है, राइट। ऐसा, सो देयरफॉर a profit oriented person will try to minimize the cost, therefore will minimize the wages, so therefore this is a problem, this leads to conflict in the society, right? ऐसा there is a conflict. अब society दो भाग में डिवाइड कर गई, ठीक है, society gets divided 2 parts, and therefore this conflict leads to what? This conflict leads to society gets divided into classes, right? So it becomes a, this leads to classes in society. That means classes क्या है? Groups. One group has one interest, maximize our wages. Other group is saying, no, we will not maximize your wages. माने कि their interest is different and their interest is different. And this leads to what? Class conflict. That is working class versus bourgeois. Bourgeois means capitalist class. And therefore, it is capitalism because of which there is hatred in the society. It is capitalism because of which there is nafrat in the society. It is capitalism because of which people are fighting in the society. Right? So therefore, if I need to have a good society, I need to add capitalism. I need to end capitalism. Right? That is the idea. अब choose करना पड़ेगा. क्या choose करना पड़ेगा? भाई, who are masses? Who are masses? So masses are the workers, right? And therefore, Karl Marx chose the side of the masses. And therefore, who needs to be ended? Profit needs to end. For profit to be ended, private property needs to be ended. And if private property होगी नहीं, तो profit motive होता ही नहीं. ये तो खुद ही देख लो. When you are staying on rent, you do not have any profit motive from that property because it is always the property owner who earns profit. Right? ऐसा. Neither you make investment nor you bear the profits, positives of profits. Right? So ऐसा. So that's why he wanted a classless society. He wanted a capitalism less society. This kind of scenario it is there. ठीक है. उसके अलावा क्या चीज़ है? तो उन्होंने पूछा. अच्छा. फिर second aspect that comes into operation is that second concept of Karl Marx. That is the problem. बहुत सही है इसकी theory. Very attractive actually. Very logical. He basically says that capitalism is undemocratic. Why capitalism is undemocratic? Because democracy is not just about in politics who will make decision. Democracy is also about that हर आदमी MLA नहीं बनता है, but there are many other decisions we take in our lives, right? For example, on the shop floor of the factory, etc. So he basically says that worker is the real producer of value in the economy. Worker is working with the help of the machines, right? And he is the one who has created this laptop. He is the one who has created this laptop, right? Even the person who's having some technology idea, he is also a worker, right? So this has been created by the workers with their effort. So who has created the real GDP in the economy? The workers. And in return, what do they get? Wages. Wages are paltry. how much, right, wage a person would be getting? Maybe just 50,000 rupees, but laptop is selling it. मतलब समझो आप किसी भी इकोनॉमी का देख लो, कोई किसी मिठाई की दुकान पे जो मिठाई बना रहा है उसको कितना वेज मिलता होगा? What wage he gets? But he is the one who is there in sweat. He is the one who is building the jalebi. आज तो बारिश से जलेबी खाने का मन कर रहा है, समोसे खाने से जलेबी, ठीक है, जलेबी, समोसा, चाय, ठीक है, this kind of stuff. But who is earning the profits? The owner of the shop. He is the one who is lakpati, right? Where the actual producer of value in the economy is earning paltry wages. So problem is that the real producer, real contributor to the economic growth, he is monetarily poor. And you know what is the second biggest problem? Second biggest problem is that the person who is actually producing the producing value in the economy, he has no decision making power. It is something like your mother makes food in the kitchen, right? Imagine such a situation. Today she has power. She says, "Aaj dal banegi." At max she will ask, "Kya khana hai?" "Mummy, paneer." "Nahi milega. Paneer kal bhi khaya tha." Right? She has decision making power. Right? She's also owner of the kitchen. Imagine a situation, okay, where there is a kamwali, where there is a maid, right? So situation is reversed now, right? Aaj ye bana dena, ye bana dena, ye bana dena. Imagine your mummy becomes kamwali. Will you like that? Imagine your mummy becomes maid. Imagine your mother has a status of a maid, right? Who is producing real value, who is cooking the real food, but she has no say in what to produce, in how much quantity to produce, of what quality to produce, when to produce, where to sell, at what price. These are the decisions of the economy. You may be a very good worker, and you may feel, you're working in Apple, and you may feel that, this one feature in Apple should change, and it will make real change, because you are the person who knows, who have designed this, all of this, right? So therefore, but do you have the auqat to do that? No. Mr. Tim Cook has to approve. Or Steve Jobs had to approve. They had to approve. Your idea, you're the one who is working. आपको पता है आप कोई चीज गलत बना रहे हो. But what is your auqat? Zero. Because you're simply a worker. You do not have decision making power. And this is how in the domain of economy, capitalism is undemocratic. Neither you give workers, the real producer of value in the economy, ना तो आप उनको पैसा देते हो और ना औकात देते हो. Neither money nor decision making power. And that's why communists, they are pro-democracy. Their theory is pro-democracy. Right? Karl Marx, in fact, he believed in absolute democracy. He did not believe in multi-party democracy. Right? ऐसा. Second problem क्या है? Capitalism is unstable. Why? Amazing logic. Simple, very catchy. In the daytime, you're a worker. Society industrialized. That means masses, they are workers. So in the daytime, you're a worker. After work, you're a buyer. You go to market with your family. Your kid says, Papa, wo dila do. Right? Your wife is saying that, I need to buy a washing machine. Right? You say, I need to have this. Right? So you're a buyer. You check the money in your pocket. How much money is there in your pocket? Wages. But to maximize profit, wages were low. And to maximize profit, MRP, maximum retail price, was kept high. Right? So therefore, this gap goes to whose pocket? Some capitalist. एक capitalist अपने घर में कितने AC लगा लेगा? One capitalist can put how many air conditioners is in home? In one room maybe 2-3 ACs. ऐसा थोड़ी टेबल पे भी AC, कंप्यूटर के ऊपर भी AC, नीचे भी AC, चेयर पे बैठे हुए AC. हर जगह थोड़ी AC. हर जगह थोड़ी AC होता है. नहीं हो पाएगा भाई. You see, demand in the economy cannot be created by minority. Demand in the economy cannot be created by minority. But if there are 100 crore people, each buys one AC, there is a demand for 100 crore ACs. Right? But to buy that, you need to check wages. You compare MRP. Right? Your kid says, Papa, गर्मी लगता है, हम भी AC लें. गर्मी तो लगता है. EMI हो जाएगा. EMI. Right? No cost EMI or some interest वाला EMI. The shopkeeper says, हाँ हो जाएगा. ठीक है, ये लो, जेब इज पॉकेट इज एम्प्टी, आई ओनली हैड मनी फॉर वन EMI, वन इंस्टॉलमेंट ऑफ EMI, राइट? ऐसा. बट ले दे के नेट रिजल्ट क्या है? I had to take loan, therefore there is debt, right? Ultimate, what is the net reality? Net reality is that आप delay कर दो उस चीज को. Net reality is that your wages are lower than the MRP. And one reckoning day of reckoning will come when you will go bankrupt. If not as an individual, as a society, yes. That's why you notice in capitalism, there are always cycles of booms and bust. Great Depression 1929, right? उसके बाद आपका वर्ल्ड वॉर वगैरह हो गया, ठीक है? उसके बाद आपका 1980s में भी क्राइसिस वॉज देयर, राइट? उसके बाद आपका 2000s में क्राइसिस हुआ, 2008 में क्राइसिस हुआ, ठीक है? फिर उसके बाद कुछ लोग कहते थे कि अगर कोविड नहीं होता तो दोबारा भी एक और क्राइसिस होता, ठीक? इन ब्रिटेन इंडिगो, राइट? इंडिगो रिवोल्ट के टाइम पे देयर वाज अ क्राइसिस इन इकोनॉमी, स्टॉक मार्केट क्रैश, राइट? सम क्राइसिस वाज देयर. सो ये क्राइसिस बार बार क्यों होते हैं इन कैपिटलिज्म? Karl Marx said, because simple reason, a simple point is that there will be default on debts. Why? Because ले देके your buying power is lower than the at what price the product is available. And why there is gap? ये gap जा कहाँ है? Between your buying power and MRP, your wages and MRP. It is going to pocket of capitalist. So therefore, capitalism is unstable, capitalism is undemocratic, right? And capitalism is oppressive, as per Karl Marx. Right? So this is his basic premise. We'll continue with Marxism in the next class, right? So ऐसा देख. We'll also talk about socialism in Russia, socialism in China. We'll talk about in the next class, right? ऐसा.